Sorry, I'm a little bit late. You will probably see me struggle stream through this to try to make sure I can show all the videos and match it up with the testimony, but we'll get through it. So, I went down a rabbit hole yesterday, largely thinking about what Danny and Pam were talking about. They recently did a video together. It's on both of their streams, and links to both of them are in the description of this video, where they go through the timeline of major hints and red flags in the relationship between Grace Jabbari and Jonathan Majors. And by red flags, it's things that Jonathan Majors wanted to break up with Grace Jabbari over and possibly did, and somehow they ended up getting back together and trying it again. So go watch that video. Great conversation, great evidence, tons of bullet points laid out. But in short, they started talking about a few of the timeline points. One being in September, there was the Toronto Film Festival, that red carpet moment where Jabbari gets into a photo. She looks kind of awkward. Jonathan Majors kind of like has her hand, but kind of like pushes it away and then gets away from her on the red carpet. And that's the only time we see them on a red carpet event together. A couple days after that, you have the September multi-day pub friend drunk fest fight that lasts 2 to 3 days. That's where we end up getting the great man speech. They break up during this time and somehow end up rekindling. And then those weird text messages get sent and Jonathan Majors replies, "It's just fake." And everything that we saw come in on redirect happens that September. In October, Jonathan Majors said while preparing for a men's health interview, he ended up telling the journalist that he was very much single. That was October 2022. Then January 13, we know that Grace Jabbari is starting to confide in Jonathan Majors' talent manager. So a bunch of weird timeline things to try to piece together here, right? There's several instances where we hear he separated from her in her own testimony, wanted her to get her stuff and get out of the house, all things that allude to him breaking up with her, even though she re-rationalizes it another way. But what got me thinking is, hey, in July 2022, there were some issues between them. She claimed there was this whole incident because of Glastonbury, and then which was June, and then in July, he's like throwing a candle at a wall. Things get crazy or whatever, according to her. So I went down the rabbit hole, and the first thing I ran into was she has this story on her Instagram, or post on her Instagram. It's a carousel post. The caption says LYSM, which means love you so much. And, you know, I'm a female with female friends. There are things that people do when they're trying to show social media, where they are, who they're with. Did they move on? Did they get back together with somebody? So for the caption, love you so much, to be present in a video from July 2022, after there was potentially a breakup, she's now in Los Angeles and showing that she's in Los Angeles. And then she goes on to add this one picture, one video of her walking 2 special dogs. So this is the beginning of my rabbit hole yesterday. And I guess I'm really slow about going through Instagram carousel images, but maybe I didn't capture it. Well, that's interesting. Oh, I think it's lagging, so that's why. Guess whose dogs those are? So she has this picture. She's all of a sudden with him in Los Angeles. Love you so much. July 2022. The end of this rabbit hole, I end up finding, and we're going to go through a bunch of stuff that I found, but to put the interesting stuff at the front of this video, I also found this video of her friends. It wasn't just one friend, and it wasn't Holly. They were all flown. Jonathan Majors paid for it. They came out to New York City for multiple days, and they go to a Mariah Carey concert. Found the video of it. Someone did a compilation video. They look like a fun group of friends, no lie. But very interesting to consider. She claimed she was isolated. And maybe you guys in the chat could define for me what isolation means, because I'm questioning whether I know what it means. This is the video compilation that was posted. It has a Mariah Carey song playing through the whole back. I'm muting that out so this doesn't get flagged. But let's rewind it to the beginning. It starts with them cheersing. They're going to be on a plane all together. Or actually, are you guys seeing lag when I'm starting the video? Let me sit it here and then pause it for a second and then play it, because it looks laggy on my side. And again, this is December 2022. Not so surprising shot of Grace Jabbari with a bottle of wine, or maybe champagne. So again, this is multiple days. These friends are all flown out here. Jonathan Majors was just single in October. This is now December, and he's paying for all of her friends that she's so isolated from, to come hang out. And plot twist, you're going to see these same faces multiple times. Why? Because they are the same friends that she goes to the Glastonbury Festival with every year. Which, I guess he had a big control freak problem about those friends, but somehow he's willing to pay all of those friends to come out to New York City for multiple days to drink and party and have a good time. That's Jonathan Majors in the back of this limo picture right here. Jabbari is right beside him. So, I thought that video was really interesting because when I had heard, it was Jimmy that mentioned it, and then we see it in the transcripts, right? So Jimmy went down to court, and he came back and mentioned, hey, Priya was asking Jabbari, and wasn't he paying to fly all your friends out? You're saying you're isolated, whatever. Then we get to see it in the transcripts. And when you match it with reality, it was kind of hard to find this footage because it's just, these are normal people, right? That just happen to be friends with Grace Jabbari, happen to be fooled by her, if you ask me. But finding this video, we didn't get this in evidence. This is just from someone's Instagram. Yeah, we live in a different world if Jonathan just doesn't dial 911. That is totally the truth. But what do you think? Would someone that's a controlling person who had a problem with you going to the Glastonbury Music Festival, would someone that was controlling and didn't want you to associate with certain people and engage in certain drinking behaviors, do you think it is consistent with that characterization if that same person also pays for them all to fly out together to New York City for multiple days to do multiple different drinking activities, to go see Mariah Carey, and they're the same friends from that festival? And you can see here, this is some of the footage from Glastonbury in 2022. You're going to see Jabbari's head pop up really quickly. And again, if it's laggy on your end, let me know, because on StreamYard, it looks really laggy on my end. I can stream it from a screen rather than through a video upload. But there's a bunch of these videos, and she goes back to Glastonbury in 2023, obviously after everything happened in March. She's still hanging out with mostly the same friends group, and there's just always cups in the hand. They all look sloshed. It looks like a good time, you know. But the problem with that is you claimed your whole life changed, you were isolated, you were a private person, and Jonathan Majors controlled you, abused you, and then continued to abuse you after he broke up with you. But your life looks fine before and during and kind of after, even though you didn't want him to leave you. So a lot of this is just footage of the music, but it's to demonstrate that these are the same faces. These people that she's hanging out, this is July 2022 now, so she's hanging out with these same people. This is not in the United States. She's hanging out with some of these same friends that she goes to Glastonbury with, separate from the Glastonbury Film Festival, but she's isolated, can't hang out with her friends. He's controlling, she can't wear revealing clothes. But now we have two different occasions in July 2022 where she's hanging out with these same friends, honky-dory. Good times are had all around. And then 2023, she's back at the Glastonbury Festival again with her friends. You're going to see her in the bottom corner here of the screen. That's her. Those are the same friends that came out to the Mariah concert in the back. And then these are long videos, so, you know, you get the point. But my point is that she's there. Everyone's having a great time. They look like a lituation all around. Again, back in 2023, so after everything happens, but before the trial, she's still hanging out. She's like goofballing it a little bit. Everyone's got drinks in their hands for a jolly good time. So, same thing, over and over and over, right? Now, I've got some problems with all of that. But we're going to line it up with her own testimony. So to start off, we're going to go through a bunch of different things, but to start off, this is how she characterizes how, then this is on direct, so Kelly Galloway's asking here. She says, Ms. Jabbari, how has this incident, meaning March 25th, how has this incident impacted your life since March 25th, 2023? Jabbari says, extremely negatively. Yeah. Can you explain what you mean by that? Just been a lot of unwanted attention over a really difficult period of my life, one I would like to keep quite private. And I've had to tell friends and family, like, everything, and that's been really hard. I'm a very private person, so that part has been really hard to kind of, the show of it all. The stuff that's been said about me is untrue, and just having to take it, it's like the abuse that I was in has not ended. So that's how she characterizes that everything that she did with Jonathan Majors, that whole relationship, and then how it culminated on March 25th, it impacts her because she's had to tell her friends and family finally, as if she never told them anything before. She's very private. She's a very private person. That doesn't seem consistent with her lifestyle. In fact, it seems she was upset that, you know, talking about privacy, but when you finally link back up with Jonathan Majors in July 2022, you caption this, love you so much, and then add a nice little sneaky video of his dogs. That's a sneaky way to, I guess, toe the line of being private while making a show of who you're with, where you're staying, and who's taken you back. If we jump to other parts of her testimony, let me line this up. And all the links to the transcripts are also in the description, by the way. So if you want to read them yourself, they're all searchable if you just hit Control F or Command F if you're on an Apple computer, or Find in Page if you're on mobile. You can just search a word and pull up the whole context for yourself. But let's see. So I think this is... Okay, so this is the testimony of how she describes Glastonbury 2022. She refers to Glastonbury as an incident that's part of this pattern of abuse that Jonathan Majors subjected her to. So let's look at how she talks about it. So directing your attention to June of 2022, I believe it was June 22nd and through the 26th was when this festival went on that year. Did you have any plans that month? Yes. What were they? Same every year. Me and my friends go to a music festival called Glastonbury. Well, where is that music festival at? It's in the UK. How long have you been going to this festival? About 10 years. How long is it? 5 days long. And this is how she describes the festival. It's just really huge. The whole place gets considered as a religion itself when it's there, and there's different activities. You know, what the first one I would think you would mention is probably drinking. But let's see what she mentions. Loads of different musical acts. It's like yoga, everything, you know, food. And pretty much my whole social friends and extended friends, like, people go, so it's just like a nice thing to do. So, doesn't mention the number one thing I would mention. Like, if this was a Family Feud game, I don't think I would guess yoga or any of those things. I would guess drinking, smoking, music, party, drugs, maybe food, friends. What, if anything, conversations did you have with the defendant before going to the festival? Now, this is important because, again, these same friends that she's with at these festivals that she's going to testify that he's a control freak about are the same ones that come to that Mariah Carey concert. It's just nuts. So, I kind of pre-warned him, chill, I'm going to bring you in. I just got to figure out how to double person it. All right, so everyone say hi to Chill. I can't hear you. Is it me? I unmuted you. You muted yourself.
I muted myself because, like, you know, I was playing Clash of Clans and I didn't want you to hear doo-doo-doo as I get new loot.
Why not? Can you time like a sound effect every time Grace Jabbari does something stupid?
What would the sound effect be?
I don't know. That's actually really good. So yeah, what do you think of my Family Feud guesses for if we surveyed 100 people and the top 5 answers are on the board. What's the number one thing people go to Glastonbury to do? What did you think of my 5 answers?
Yeah, drinking would be right up there, but she's
ding.
She's performing though, but they don't get it. The jury bought it. The jury believed all the things she's saying. Cases are won during jury deselection.
Everyone's saying, "What's up? Hey, Eliza. Hey, Erica." And then, yeah, she might be doing yoga, you know, but not like yoga. But then the other thing is like, so she goes to this festival again with her friends this past summer in July. So before the trial, because, you know, the incident happens and then the trial, you could have a baby before the trial actually takes place. It was like 9 months away. But if you were these friends and you end up, they probably have no idea about this testimony because it's not like it was televised. But if you actually were exposed to the way that this girl's characterizing Glastonbury, would you get the vibe like, girl, why are you downplaying Glastonbury? Everybody knows what it is. Mm-hmm. Like, that video alone just looks lit from the surface. Everybody there looks like they're there for the same reason, to have a good time. It's not like a festival where people like set up vendor shops to like walk and talk slowly, you know? So, but she's characterizing it. You know, she's going to say Jonathan Majors hated this. She goes anyway. I had no signal on my phone. I'm going to need a tissue. Sorry. So can anyone explain why she's crying? Apparently that's normal. And it's some carriers have better signal in certain parts. But she had 2 different phones.
No, this is in England though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in America she uses that phone to get hotspot on the other phone. But okay, I get it. Then it's not an issue.
Yep. So that's why that's happening. And that's the same thing, guys, when we're watching like video clips and pictures from this moment. You know, that friend could have had, you know, service to upload things, or it could be something that they took the footage and then uploaded it after. It doesn't mean that they all had service at the same time. So he has no signal I had no signal on my phone. I'm going to need a tissue. Sorry. So we're getting a cry fest when we're talking about Glastonbury. So she's going on, I had no service. What would happen in the evenings when everybody's asleep? The service would go through. So some texts would go through, but ultimately, yeah, there was no service. I would text them off my friend's phone because some of them had better service than I. So then they go into, did you receive any messages from the defendant? What was the tone of those messages? Not very nice. Now, if you ask me, that's really vague.
You can't ask because the tone of message. What did the message say? Isn't that like speculation? That's an objection.
Right, especially a message. It's different if you're hearing a voice, right? But a text message, I think you're right. I don't think the judge would go for that objection, but a judge could be, sustained. So she just says, not very nice. Can you explain what you mean? Just that I shouldn't be there and how dare I go. But we don't see these text messages. We get to see other text messages, but we don't get to see these text messages. This is a really important week for me. And you should have turned around and left, basically. So she's quoting some text and then characterizing it as basically that's what they said. And I said, oh, should I leave? Is that the conversation you had while you're at the festival? At the festival, it was kind of a slow back and forth. So doesn't it seem like she's changing here? Like, oh, well, at the festival, the texts were more like, doesn't it seem like she's telling 2 different time periods here? Mm-hmm. It was kind of a slow back and forth of like, I love you, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm trying to get hold of you. And he would just say that this is really upsetting, but like, yeah, sure, have fun. Yeah. And you mentioned the defendant said that it was important to him. What about that week was important? So he was filming a film that week and he had to like get his body into a certain place. He was becoming a bodybuilder. He was quite stressed. So they're alluding to him having like, you know, extra tension than he normally would to justify what else she's trying to layer in. So you said you were able to get in contact with the defendant throughout. Yeah. The communication wasn't fluid, but ultimately, yeah, some texts would go through. And my friend's phone went through. I bumped into one of his friends when I was there, and I said to him, oh my gosh, I can't get a hold of him. Can you send him like just a picture of you and me so he knows I've seen you and I'm okay? Okay, what happened next? From the messages, that he was quite upset with me. And I just wasn't really enjoying it fully because I just felt guilty for being there. So I left, basically.
She makes it sound like he was upset over the photo that you took with another man, as opposed to upset for smoking or drinking or whatever she did.
Or being there or not being in touch. And then she, again, I already think she jumbled her time. She described 2 different time spanses here with different blocks of text messaging. But here, she's like, I just felt guilty for being there, so I left, basically. But if we jump back to these 2022 videos, and there's some pictures too, but she's in multiple outfits, presumably multiple days. So it's from June 22nd to June 26th. So if you're there in multiple outfits, Why are you making it seem like you show up to this place, get someone exploding on you because they're method acting, and then you have to leave because you need to make him feel better? When clearly you're there for multiple days, talking about how you couldn't get a hold of him for multiple days, but also were talking to him throughout the day, and then that you leave. It doesn't, the picture she paints doesn't even match the basic details of any of it. From my understanding.
Mine too.
Maybe I'm just like, you know. So she ends up going, like, I'm just going to leave. I wasn't having as much fun as I normally did, but she's in the footage we see. She's like,
she posted it. I don't post the time that I'm not enjoying on my internet.
It was a friend that posted it.
Uh-huh.
But I have heard Lily Rush and a few other people have mentioned she's archived certain things off of her wall that she previously posted on her own Instagram. So I don't know the specifics of those things, but, you know, she's documented having a good time by somebody.
Okay.
So as soon as she gets out, like further out, I drove. So when I drove back, I stopped. So she leaves in the middle of this festival. She's making it seem like she just ups and leaves. But what has she been doing all day? Whatever day she says she actually leaves. So that's questionable because we know she tried to get behind the wheel of a car drunk in Sag Harbor. So now she's saying I got into like further out, I drove. So when I drove back, I stopped in like a service station and tried to call him and text him. Tried to contact him basically, and he said, I'm out of it, like I have service now, I'm here. So he's not answering the phone, but I did text him. Were you eventually able to get in contact with the defendant? Yeah, he would send me some texts. So you tried to call and text him and tell him all these things, but then you don't actually contact him because he doesn't answer the phone. So you just text him. But then you say, he's sending me some texts. Like, it sounds like she's scared to say, hey, maybe he sent you a text that he's like, I don't think this is working out. So he was disappointed in me, like, how dare I? He thought he could trust me with our relationship, and with the fact I went was just embarrassing. And like, you're just out here drinking with your friends and you don't care about me. Like, I'm having a really hard week and you shouldn't have been there. You should have known to turn around as soon as you got there and there was no signal. And this was all in response to not being able to communicate with him. Yeah. So framing it, Chill, you pointed that out. She wants to make it all seem like her issue is what? Mm-hmm. Just no signal.
That's it.
And you said the defendant wasn't answering his calls. Yes, correct. Now, this is important. This is important. How long approximately was it until you were able to speak with the defendant? I can't tell you exactly how many days. I think there were had been like a few phone calls, but he wasn't working as well, so I don't think we spoke on the phone for a few days. This is jumbled, but you're making it seem like he freaks out on you, tells you through the phone, through text or call, why are you there? How dare you? You gotta come home. You gotta get out of there. But you're not actually even communicating with him because 2 seconds later you communicate, you don't even have contact with him. And now you're the one freaking out because he's the one not responding to you. So, what do you think really happened there, Chill?
No, what I'm reading is a few days isn't specific. 2 days is literally a few days, but it can also make you think, 5 days. There's a reason for her wording.
Yep. So you can't go back and check her details out and catch her up on something. Mm-hmm. And she's also not being clear if this is starting when she hits the road, or if this is supposed to carry over from before she hits the road, or if this starts after she leaves. She's just making it all vague and jumbled together. So you can't pinpoint anything.
You can't pinpoint anything. As soon as the clock passes midnight, it becomes a new day. So yes, for a few days.
Yeah, it should be. Although maybe time stops at Glastonbury. You know, I imagine like those days you could technically get away with saying the day goes until 2 or 4 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And what did you do? This is to Grace.
Before you continue reading, over in the super chat section of the YouTube channel, we got Erica Dixon, $4.99.
Oh, hey, what's up, Erica Dixon? And we also have, pointing out again, she's texting and calling him from strangers' phones. But she just claimed she's a very private person. So shouldn't she understand the brevity of being up in someone else's phone with someone else's business and then giving them someone else's phone number in the process?
She's not thinking about that. She's over here posting with dogs. Like, all this Instagram stuff is new to me. I never thought about...
Oh my God, I went down a rabbit hole yesterday. I mean, I started sending it to the group chat and then it was so much. And I was like, going, and I'm like, I gotta stop doing this. And then the next click, after I was about to tell myself enough was enough for me, my sanity, I see the Mariah video, and I'm like, how are you going to the Mariah Carey concert with your Glastonbury friends? You made a whole incident out of Glastonbury and how you're controlled and isolated from your friends. But then Jonathan Majors pays to fly them all out. After breaking up with you like 2 or 3 times since Glastonbury, he's still flying your friends out. For multiple days, right? So New York City is expensive as it is. Mariah Carey concert's expensive as it is. He's paying to fly these friends out. They're all in like one cabin of a flight together. I don't know if it's first class or what, but they're all seated together. They have like dividers between each individual seat. It's not regular Joe Schmo. Like, this is not an Allegiant flight. Like, it's nice.
Jonathan takes the stand. Let's say he has to like cover everything she was covering and explain that, no, actually I paid for all of these for this Mariah Carey concert. What that time that she was complaining about this, that argument, this is what actually happened. Hey, that text message, this is what actually happened. Imagine if he just explained it all. He still gets his guilty verdict because the jury is who they are. I don't think that there's anything he could do to cover up or protect. And also, with him being on the stand, they can ask the question, have you ever
They're
hit a
going to
woman?
take the sound bites. Can you imagine the sound bites that they would pull from his testimony? If he went up there and said the word "the," and later he said, like, she hit me, they're going to take the word "the," or like whatever, and then ellipses, ... and then put the word "hit," and then put ... and then Jabbari. And they're going to seem like he said something totally different. Like, it just wouldn't.
That feels like how the
It'd be
reporters
nice.
were reporting. But also, if she actually takes a stand, they'll say, did you ever hit a woman? No. Well, that opens up all his exes. Let's bring an ex-girlfriend who's got some you know, and that's an ex. This guy is now famous, world famous, and really rich. You don't think there's going to be an axe to grind there? You know what? When we were together, so there's no benefit to him taking the stand. I've seen people say that he didn't do it, and that's there's a chance for you to speak up for yourself.
It's my own like satisfaction. Like, I would have loved to have seen. I think it's hard for people that don't normally pay attention to trials too to understand, like, you know, sometimes you start a trial, the prosecution leads with their case, or in a civil case, it's like plaintiff starts with their case in chief. And you watch the first day or two and you're like, oh, wow, the people that they're up against, they really did them dirty. Did they really have a case? Because all you're seeing in the beginning usually is stuff that's supposed to support their side. A lot of people aren't used to like kind of watching that thing. When you think about this trial, besides the driver, who we get this one soundbite that, oh, they asked him not to share his opinion. That's like what the news was focusing on. And then, you know, Detective Mejia, he shows up and we know what he's trying to testify to, but he can't. It's stricken from the record, so the news can't or won't report on that either. You know, we kind of have the stuff in this case that really looks good for Jonathan Majors isn't being reported. So people don't see the limited other side. Yes, Jonathan Majors didn't testify himself, but even the witness testimony that was favorable to him didn't get transmitted. It didn't get that signal boost that other things did.
The witness testimony, you mean the driver?
The witness. The witness that isn't trustworthy, according to the prosecution, after they heard his testimony. Because he didn't say slammed her against the thing like a football or whatever they wanted him to say.
He didn't say psycho girl either, but I don't think it would have mattered because the jury said, split the baby. Okay.
Yeah.
He harassed her. He recklessly assaulted her. Did he aggravatedly harass her? No, didn't do that. Well,
it's like shit happened in that video, and these charges look like we can say that's what's happening in this video because there's motion, there's like movement, there's contact. So, well, we can check these boxes. But no, I guess technically they didn't see the intent on his face, which was nice that they didn't give that verdict, even though the prosecutor tried it. But they're going into this here. Basically, the tail end of this Glastonbury incident. And it's laughable that she calls this an incident that goes to this pattern of abuse that she had inflicted upon her. It's not an incident. She goes out. He thinks it's not working for him. He's serious. He's focused on his work. She's partying. He's distancing himself. She's upset that he's creating distance between them because she wants, you know how girls can get, and guys can do it too, but in a relationship, there's sometimes people that are clingy and need that like 24/7 response. And from her testimony, even though she tries to cover it up, she's not getting that assurance or getting that response that she wants to know that she's loved and everything she does is gravy, right? So that's what's going on here. She gets questions. the prosecution really wants to know this reason. You said he wasn't speaking with you. Did you understand that was because he was working? So they want to make it clear he's not speaking to her, but they don't want to say why, the real reason why he's probably not speaking to her. He might be busy, but it's also because he's not going to entertain some non-Coretta Scott King and non-Michelle Obama type behavior while he's trying to do something serious in his life. So Chaudhry tries to object, so doesn't float. So then she goes on to say, so you said he wasn't speaking with you. Did you understand that was because he was working? He wasn't speaking to me because he was angry at me for going to the festival. Objection, speculation, he told me that. But like, you know, we get all these other things where it's like with the buttons and the Priya Satyani talking to the manager. Well, we know that you were told why he was angry with you, but at the same time you danced around that. But here you just boldly flat out say that's why he's mad at you. So, did there come a time when he did speak to you again? Yes. And what did he say to you in substance?
Let me add also, he's angry at me for going to the festival. Couldn't there be more things he's angry at you? There's like a list of things. One of them includes that you went to the festival, and not to mention the phone calls with other people, strangers' phones, and I'm a celebrity, and not to mention the partying and the stupid stuff that you partook in. There's a lot of reasons. The hours without contact. There's a lot of reasons that he could have been at. One of them could have been, I'm angry because you went.
Or do you know where he was actually located filming at this time? I know in July he was in Los Angeles, but I'm not sure about June. This is the end of June, right? So let's say, for example, he's in Los Angeles and she's calling him whenever she feels like she can actually contact him. She's trying to text him all day with any and anybody's phone, which sounds like Klinger Stage 8 girlfriend to me, rather than someone just trying to prove to their boyfriend that they're not just inaccessible. But then whenever it's her free time, when the signal's good at night in Glastonbury, she's calling him on her own time. What time works for her? Her schedule works for her. Talk to me now. He could be busy. He could be resting. He could be asleep. He could be on set. Like, you know what I mean? So that's another reason he could be upset, because you're just trying to work and you're being interrupted because someone's calling you drunk, trying to like, do you love me, babe? Say you love me.
No, you first.
I'll say that's a little creative licensing on my part, but I don't think I'm that far off. But they go on. Galloway says, did there come a time when he did speak to you again? Yes. And what did he say to you in substance? Just in substance. It was when I said that I would go places without my friends and that he was my priority. He then was like, you don't have to say that, but it means a lot. Then we kind of just picked up back to normal. Did this incident impact your behavior in the relationship moving forward? Yeah. Also my relationship when I wasn't with him, if that makes sense. Can you explain to the members of the jury? Sorry. She's looking at the jury. Sorry, I'm not talking to you. Yeah. Just more I would feel anxious if I was with my friends and I wasn't talking to him constantly because I would worry. Yeah. I was just worried of the reaction of that. So then they go to July 2022. Now, this is like candle incident or whatever. But the point here is she's acting like this is the moment in the relationship. So they meet each other in August 2021. By the end of June, going into July, she has this kind of moment where she's like, well, I'm isolated now. I can't have friends. I can't do anything because it's going to upset him. That's how she's framing this to the jury and probably to the prosecution. Who knows? But this stuff that we looked at was from July. These are the same friends. Like, so she says after Glastonbury, like, she can't have friendships anymore. But she's hanging out with the same people she was at Glastonbury with. Clearly without Jonathan Majors there. So none of that is an issue. But she's telling the jury it's an issue because they're not going to have a way to go and know better.
They're not.
She can just get away with it.
Oh.
But, they should be like me. They should be like me. And the next thing that we get into, and I think it's the same one, it's like page 85. Let me see.
Jonathan's friend at Glatzo probably ratted on her behavior, and that's why he went off and called her embarrassing. You know?
Yeah. Oh.
He could have heard the stories from her reliable confidants talking about, oh, be careful with her. hey, she's a drunk driver type of person.
She's been here 8 years. I know her from this festival because she said she's gone for 10 years. So she went this year, she went that year. That's at least 8 other years she's gone to this festival consistently. So if she runs into someone that somehow he also happens to know, it could be that Jabbari only knows this person because they run into each other at this festival. Now, one of Grace Jabbari's friends seems like very influencer status, like lifestyle influencer, Instagram girl, like really beautiful, does lots of trips. Even her highlights on Instagram are like, this is me in Bali, this is me in Indonesia, just traveling all the time. And they have pictures.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's how my brain's working. That's probably why I said them back to back. but in any case, she's traveling, and Grace Jabbari has done trips with her. In fact, up until about 2016, it looked like the two of them were like peas in a pod. And then there's another friend that she starts being more peas in a pod with, but there are some like group things like around Christmas and birthdays where the whole gang is together. Mm-hmm. But like around 2016 is when Grace Jabbari, she gets out of like Rembrandt dance school. Is that where she went to? Something like that. But a nicer art school. This is where she's getting linked up with Ben Toddy and Box Artist Management and Holly Blakey's choreography team. So through that time period, she's traveling and doing other things. And then come 2021, she also is on the set of Ant-Man. She meets Jonathan Majors. She was hanging out. She was in some pictures with some other band that looks pretty popular right at the beginning of August 2021. And she just tags the one guy from the band in it. It's a picture of her in the studio. She doesn't tag the whole band or the band's page. She just tags the one guy. So you guys, you guys do with that detail what you will.
I know. I need to know what to do with that detail. I don't know what to do with it.
I don't know. It could be similar to someone possibly making a caption like this, LYSM, after they got broken up with for Glastonbury, and then get back together and come fly out to spend some time in Los Angeles, where your ex-boyfriend that you get back together with is living with his 2 dogs, and you're showing people. That might be a reason why you would tag one person and only one person when the studio you're standing in relates to a whole band. You know?
Okay. Yeah, you're trying to claim.
It's just signals. Just signals. Just signals. So let's see if anyone else is catching it. Yeah, hold on. Let me get this off of here. Can't stand the beach. I don't like how it does that. That's better.
You like this better
than the other? And then what am I missing?
I like the big.
Yeah, it's because I sit sideways.
Yeah.
It's because my screen's diagonal in front of me. Mm-hmm. So Jonathan's friend at Glasto probably ratted on her behavior. Yeah, so you're right. You guys in the chat are so sharp. And let's see. It was an online... So, Eliza, what are you talking about here? I read something early last year, sometime in May. Then anything related to that story was just, there was an incident. The comedian mentioned the London incident where Jabbari slapped him across the face in front of people. I heard the same story early last year. Yeah, we've got to brainworm that. So everyone, there's this thing. So the comedian, I mentioned him the other day. He had he's popular anyway, but I think this video that he did on Jonathan Majors is outperforming some of the other videos on his channel. I think it's Josh Johnson. It was good. I thought it was really fair.
I've been sent it from like 5 different people, and what were you gonna say? It's good. It was comedy, right? It was just stand up.
Yeah, I think it was comedy. It was a skilled comedy set. You know, it wasn't just someone like Coretta. It wasn't one of those like I'm gonna get easy clicks for engagement. He had punches. He had some recall. You know, but he mentioned something, and more than one person's pointed it out now, that Jabbari slaps him across the face in front of a bunch of people. And the only thing I can think of is there was some report back in July, it involved July 2022, that the police were called about something. And they don't specify who the parties are, or if the action went from Jonathan Majors to someone else, or if it went from that person to Jonathan Majors. But remember, in the DIR, the domestic incident report that Jonathan Majors files in not the 10th precinct, but the 3rd precinct in New York City, he says, yeah, she's hit me before, and mentions some July 2022 incident. Uh-huh. So that could be the dots that somehow Josh Johnson is familiar with. And, you know, maybe he's a comedian and he's finding source material the same way Eliza remembers hearing something, the same way a few other people have remembered hearing something. Or maybe he's just come across a situation. I don't know Josh Johnson's background, but maybe he went to some like acting school. A lot of stand-up comedians do improv classes, acting classes, you know? So I think that's the kind of thing, if you guys as a crowd start like talking about and looking for, could probably find it all. And yeah, I'm gonna I try to be. I've been getting called Katy Perry a lot, so that's fine. And then Juanita says, if you've been going to Glastonbury for 10 years, you know which provider gives the best signal. She's on some utter BS. And you think at that point, you couldn't just say like, hey, it's some Vodafone maybe that sets up like booster towers at the festival. So you could have been like, I'm going to get a phone from that carrier that can work off these booster signals. Or I can have Jonathan give me a third phone. Like, you know, he clearly had no problem giving me a phone number 2. So if this is really an issue, or he could have suggested it, you know, if that really was his issue. He had no problem giving her a second phone. Why couldn't he give her a
landline? There could have been other ways to do it. Where was she staying at? Somewhere without a phone? Come on now.
Okay, yeah, so Vodafone, yeah. Okay, biggest carrier. Yeah, so but that's like what I'm getting at is like, there's a solution if the problem leading up to it was, hey, there's not going to be any signal. You testify that you're already aware of this and discuss this with him before you leave to go to this festival. You guys could have handled that if that was really the issue. Easily. You know? And that's okay. Most autocorrect corrects my name to Matt with an M, so at least we got the right gender.
All because of this little thing that you did on Facebook where they wouldn't let you change your name. And now you're just Cat.
Oh, yeah. So when the song Cat Daddy came out, guys, I changed my Facebook name to Cat and then Daddy with a bunch of Y's, and then Facebook wouldn't let me change my name for a year. So everyone I met that year, it was the year I moved and met a lot of people, they didn't remember my name in person. They waited till they saw on Facebook and started calling me that. So it stuck.
That was the time when like Facebook started becoming the police. Like they needed everything official. You started needing to enter a phone number just so that, you know.
Yeah, if you were detected as spam, you had to start doing all that weird stuff.
Yeah.
That was an okay time. And let me pull up. Okay, I want to get to page 43. So there wasn't that much that was interesting about July 2022. Let me make sure I go back to the right screen share. Struggle streaming, guys. So did this like put you in? No, I took you out of it now. This one. All right, there we go. So July 2022, remember, this is where we're seeing this video she's posting from Los Angeles now. She just got done with Glastonbury. He went radio silent on her for a few days, even though she tried to frame it another way. Somehow they're in touch again, and she gets back on Instagram, posting from Los Angeles, saying, love you so much, and showing off that she's walking his dogs, where I didn't know Jonathan Majors' backstory, but it seems like all of you guys that are fans or part of the fan club know damn well who those 2 dogs belong to. So if you came across that video back in July of 2022, it would have been identifiable to any person that's familiar with Jonathan Majors and follows his news, who she was and who she was with, right? That's the point of her posting that.
And Zuba's dogs, that's him. Those are his. We know them.
Wait, you said Zubaz?
What do you call those striped zebra pants?
Wait,
they're not called Zubaz? Is there another name for it?
I don't know. I didn't know they had a name.
Hold up a minute. Zubaz. And I'll share my screen. Pants. Maybe I spelt it wrong. Z-U-B-A-Z. Yeah, they are called Zubaz pants. See?
Oh, okay.
Look.
Hold on, wait. Do you have it shared?
Yeah, I'm sharing now. Here.
Okay.
Images. Zubaz pants.
Oh, geez. These look like really good Glastonbury Festival pants.
That's where she picked them up for him.
Just that and like a Von Dutch hat or something.
If your girl brought you something, clothing that you liked, and then you all of a sudden broke up, are you not allowed to post it? I'm sure you're gonna wear it, right? I'll still wear this to work out, I'll still use this here and there, but do you not post yourself in those clothings anymore? I think you have to.
Oh, so I reread the motion to dismiss today because I'm trying to put together
my question, but okay.
Well, okay, but in it, Priya says that jumper, the green jumper she wears, was a sweatshirt that was sentimental to him. So body cam Jabbari picture where she's wearing just that green hoodie. Priya says it's a sweatshirt that's sentimental to Jonathan Majors.
It was bought in an auction. It once belonged to Coretta. It's okay when
But yeah,
I make the Coretta jokes. Okay.
if I'm about to move and leave, I'm not putting on your sweatshirt. Like, if I'm mad and pissed at you and I have the blue hoodie you're wearing right now, the last thing I'm gonna do is sit there and fall asleep in it.
Like,
no
we
sense.
know this wasn't the end of the relationship according to her. Like, she believed
Yeah,
that
yeah,
there's
yeah.
more to it. It's only until the making good relationship pops up and she sees that there's an end point. She's like, oh, look, I don't even gotta press these charges. I just gotta roll with what the district attorney's doing against this fucking Jonathan. All I gotta do
I
is
think we all need to get these pants, by the way. We're gonna brand, can you make Chillmonger branded Zuba pants?
yeah, right after the leggings, the poly, what do you call them?
I don't know.
No, there's not going to be no chill leggings or chill hammer time pants. Okay.
I agree, Eliza. The girl was traumatized from hearing it's over. She got up in her car and sped out of the Glastonbury festival, probably after she was done. It was probably like the 26th of June. As soon as the party ended that night, she didn't even want to sleep. I bet you. She didn't even want to sleep. She got right in that car and wanted her boyfriend to talk to her. And she's framing it as a totally different way. Every incident is that. Except the dog one, because that was like 2 sentences, but probably that too somehow.
She just wanders through life like this. Like, oh, there's a thing that I have to deal with this man, and she dealt with it, and now they're back together, and she was secretly recording him just to hold and use that against him one day if it ever comes in handy. And then she goes on to the next chaotic life. Like,
yeah, especially as because Danny and Pam, and again, I linked to their timeline video in the description. But especially when you start adding these dots together, September 2022, we're going to come across that Toronto Film Festival red carpet thing. And then October, he's telling an interviewer, a journalist from Men's Health, I'm very much single. Then by December, he's flying all of her friends out to New York City. All of this is, she's claiming she tried to extend their relationship to span 2 years. It was really a year and 7 months, August 2021 when they met, and then at the end of August. And then everything happens on March 25th of 2023. She's claiming like, oh, I'm on lockdown. I'm isolated from my friends. Everything was great in the beginning when we spent all this time together every day. We were inseparable. It was amazing. And then as soon as things start separating and he's working and he's in Sag Harbor saying, hey, don't plan your schedule around me, she's freaking out and then trying to reframe that as abuse. So even here, when we get to July, he goes radio silent on her. I'm on the wrong screenshot here. Let's see. Are we in July 2022? Yeah, cool. So we get to July. This is right after she freaks out that he's not responding to her when she's saying, I had no signal, and he's mad that I'm not responding to him. But she admits that he wasn't responding to her for multiple days after she left the festival and had signal. So it can't be explained away by her not having signal. It doesn't compute. So they move forward just a little bit. She's doing this like dog video thing here in July. I love you so much. And then they ask her about it. So in July 2022, where were you? In between UK and Los Angeles. All right. And where were you in Los Angeles? To visit Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the defendant doing in Los Angeles? He was filming, working. And how long are you there? I would go for like a week at a time or a little longer. We kind of made this rule. We wouldn't ever spend more than 3 weeks apart. It would be like 3 weeks max. That would be it. So now, does that sound like a relationship where she's on lockdown, has to be a Susie homemaker, can't leave, you have to stay with me, you can't have friends, you're isolated?
Nah, 3 weeks away from your partner is not on control. That's actually kind of reasonable. And that's the maximum, she said.
Right? And this is we wouldn't ever spend. After she just said it was great when we were together every single day. So it doesn't seem like any issue with the 3 weeks being apart is his and his alone. If anything, it's mutual, and it might possibly be a bigger problem for her than it is for him, which we'll see when we get to the Sag Harbor testimony and revisit that. So 3 weeks max, that will be it. That's the thing she says we made a rule about. So when you're in Los Angeles, the I love you so much video, what was the defendant's demeanor like at that time? So he's filming, he's under a lot of pressure, we're getting into the method acting, he's stressed out. And how did that impact your relationship? And she's going to make his stress her own grief and victimhood. Yeah, it felt a bit like I was just kind of walking around on eggshells. Like, it was just had to kind of be perfect. Because if I did one little thing that was maybe said one thing, and the temper would kind of show, and I just wanted to avoid it. But I wasn't working when I was there. I was working in London, so I felt like I would just try to make it as seamless as possible for him. And did there come a time when the defendant did become upset with you? So, she's crying. We're getting the I'm so sorry. It's okay. Take your time.
No,
Sorry.
because she does this a lot, though. She'll just start crying so that you can enter and you can submit while she's crying, making noise and tearing up, and you can be like, oh, this, like, your imagination takes over. Your imagination as the jury, you're watching her and you're going, what? Oh, she went through something. There's an emotional reaction happening in front of my face, which makes me know that he was on some wrong, abusive type stuff. Look, she's clearly crying. It's amazing how the crying was used, and I want to take it back to that last day when she's on the stand. Hey, we're gonna now, because you opened the door, we're gonna play these text messages. Read these, and she starts reading it, and she starts crying so she can't finish reading it. They wanted you to know that you couldn't even finish reading it, so that you can imagine.
You would assume that she was the victim of whatever was being said that wasn't shown in those text messages and wasn't contextualized. And you were going to draw the conclusion that the context favors her story.
Instead of asking her while she's there, okay, well, you seem to be crying. Did something happen to your head via Jonathan? Did he assault you on that day? They never tried to bring that up a second time. They just kind of oh, look, she's crying as she's reading these text messages.
And who hurt you on March 25th? Jonathan Majors. Is that what you associate? Yeah. I bet some people were sitting there thinking those text messages were from March 25th, even though they did say, like, returning to September. Well, you read through a whole block of text, your brain's going to lose that. And then the next thing you hear is March 25th.
If that's people in the jury who couldn't make the connection between it was in 2022 versus what happened on March 25, 23.
The public.
The people in real life who are just looking at the headlines, looking at, oh, shit, oh, really? He said these texts? Let me see these text messages. Yeah, they do make it seem like he put hands on her. Well, they don't know that they never used those text messages to prove he put hands on her in 2022. People just going to see the text and assume that in court, then there became an hour-long discussion about what happened and she explained that he did hit me. They think that she said after those text messages, after I said I don't want to go to the hospital, I couldn't go to the hospital, and it made it look bad because he was telling me not to go. I was also getting beat up and roughed up by Jonathan. They think that's what she said, and the text messages were there to prove that's what she said. But that didn't happen at all. They just read text messages. She cried to imply that he did something to her, just like she's doing here. And when she does it here, this is what, the third time by now that she's done it.
Yeah. Why hasn't? And this is still on direct. This is still on direct too, and it's the same thing. But with the redirect, the September 2022 text, they don't even lay the foundation. Normally when you want to produce text messages and publish them to the jury, you put it in front of the person. You say, "Does this look familiar to you? Is this true and accurate representation?" And then she's already crying, so they don't really even get through that initial let it in process. They just steamroll it in, which I think is another kind of issue with that. What happened on redirect? Maybe I'm recalling that wrong, but I remember they didn't do the same. Like, you're supposed to sit there and read through the whole thing. You're not just supposed to look at something and say it looks familiar. You're supposed to read and then verify that it's true and complete, or an accurate in its completeness. And it seemed from the transcript reading and from the fact that everyone said the redirect was super speedy and short that was in the courtroom, that she didn't actually sit there and read it in front of her. She just saw it and said, "Yep, that's it. Oh, I can't read it." Which isn't normally how things come in.
Hey, I'm stream sharing on my channel. If you want more, go over to Kat's YouTube channel and check us out.
Yeah, you can hang out on both.
The 53rd.
But the chat is fun in here. Because does it only come through my StreamYard will show me everyone's?
It was until I just stopped it now.
Okay, I get it. So you're done over there. Cool. But the chat, if you're in the chat, you wouldn't be able to see other chatters that are on another channel.
No.
We're like God in here. We're omniscient. we can see it all. And then hold on. This is the July stuff, right? Let me make sure. So she's crying about the July stuff. So she gets back out. She's visiting him in Los Angeles after he doesn't want to talk to her after Glastonbury. Now she's crying when she has to talk about Los Angeles. So Yeah, I could tell he was really tense, so I just basically went over to him and said, like, what's wrong? And you can talk about these things. You don't have to hold it all inside. What's wrong, basically? I just tried to say, like, it's me, like, just talk it out. If you're stressed, it's good to just, like, get it out. And during the course of your conversation, did the defendant become upset with you? Yeah. And she repeats yes because it was objected to. How so? He just exploded, basically, is the word I would use to describe it. Yeah. Can you explain what the defendant's body language was like? Tense. Yeah, his face kind of changes when he gets in that place. He's a big guy, so you just want to step back.
And he's black. So don't forget,
Yeah.
guys.
Well, didn't you say he's double her size? And what did you mean by the word exploded? Yeah, it was like a violent temper. It was full of rage and aggression, and he was throwing things, shouting in my face, throwing objects. So then it ends up being that he throws a candle at a wall. So, where were you? And this is where she gives, you guys can go and watch this testimony reading, but the point of this is there's a fight in July after he gave her radio silence or whatever after the Glastonbury Film Festival. But she's clearly coming to his place. He's across the ocean. He comes over, he invites her over there. I'm sure he paid for it. So she comes over there, and then now she turns it into an incident. But we had a rule, we can't be apart from each other for more than 3 weeks. But then at the same time, you're trying to say that he's controlling and abusive to you. But you weren't trapped there. You weren't stuck there. He wasn't telling you couldn't hang out with your friends because you saw your friends in July. And then you start to say he was throwing things, he had like a violent temper, but he throws one thing, and then you get inconsistent in your whole description of where he was standing throughout this whole ordeal. If you go and watch that transcript reading or you go and read the document yourself, you'll see that she's following him around the house, she's moving, she's misrepresenting where he's standing when he throws this candle. She's making it up as she goes. So, with September 2022, and then let's see. Yeah, let's remember Grace Jabbari didn't know Jonathan Major's height or weight. And then she says he was shouting in her face, but he was in a different room. Exactly, like this, her testimony of how this incident played out doesn't make sense. It seems played up. And then we get this Good Morning America interview where he's like, I swiped stuff off of a counter or whatever. Like, that seems a lot more reasonable and makes sense with what the picture looked like and not consistent with someone getting up in someone's face. It looks like something someone did to not take it out on a person. Suburbia Jones. So you would have asked Grace Jabbari, are you a glutton for punishment? Yeah, like she just wants to like go back to the thing she keeps complaining about across overseas. You know, I get it. Codependent relationships, especially if you live near each other, you live in the same house, kind of easy to just like keep rolling with it, right? But you kind of have to go out of your way to get yourself from the UK over to Los Angeles. Like, that takes work and planning and time to make happen. It's not just convenient and you're already there in it, so you're just going to stay there where you are. But who knows? And then, yeah, Erica Dixon suggests he really doesn't want her there. Guarantee that's where the argument really came from. Either that or she gets there and she's not respecting his time. Like, maybe we can spend mornings and evenings together, but I have to work during the day. And then when that time comes, maybe she's trying to be up under his ass all day. Which you can't do if you want your significant other to be able to succeed in their work and in their responsibilities. And then Daisy, I'm sure the long distance factor gave Jonathan Majors time to think, like, wait, what the fuck am I doing? Which is why he kept trying to break up with her. Or he gets back in Los Angeles and realizes there's like normal people he can hang out with that also have other hobbies and things to do. Because at this time, we're starting to see Grace mention that she's not working. She's working a little bit in London, but mostly she's not working because she has time to take these trips. So her schedule is now conveniently clearing up for her to be able to spend time with someone who has a busy schedule. That's a conflict in a relationship. It's not going to work if you can't respect someone's responsibilities. And then she didn't know he had a master's from Yale. Yeah, she didn't know like half that stuff. And on the 911 call, he like lays out all 4 of her names straight up. Like Caitlin, what is it? Grace, Caitlin, Natasha, Jabbari. He lays out the whole name, the whole 9 yards. And she's like, I don't know where he went to school. And his school is actually important to his career, right? Like some people, we get like these throwaway degrees in America and then do something that relates not at all to it. But he went
Yeah.
to Yale for his craft that he's perfecting, and it's part of like every interview he has. And then, how do you talk about marriage and children but have no idea your partner graduated from Yale?
I just don't know how.
She just wanted to be Mrs. Majors. That's all. Okay, so they're going into this
He knows
July.
he went to Yale? Like, did he drop out? How did you not piece those together? Okay, you're an actor. You don't think at one time he would have mentioned like there was never a friend from Yale that he brought up during your year-long relationship?
You don't
like
think
that?
she Wikipedia'd this man? She's the one that Googled and found out about her own iCard for her arrest, which was not widely reported. You have to search to come across that stuff. She was probably searching for herself.
Remember that talk
show? She probably
that...
Wikipedia'd him when they got together. Or like Googled his name and then read the Wikipedia or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't think that that's that like unusual, especially if you're in like the Hollywood career and you want to see like someone's history, like what other work they've done. But also if you're getting into a relationship with them and they're a celebrity, you can't tell me that you're not going to come across at least one, like Megan showing up and sitting in for interviews with him. She's like there for a man. She's taking care of his dogs, hanging out with the dogs, loving the dogs. We see Grace show love to those dogs just to signal, love you so much, I'm in Los Angeles. So she uses the dogs to signal, right? So she's using the dogs. At least she knows who they are, right?
That's why Megan's...
Then when it comes to his career, no, I mean, I don't know Megan's history, but doesn't she usually like post like lives and stuff? Like she posts candid stuff.
Okay.
So that could just be a different lifestyle habit. I'm not really sure, but I think I've seen other videos go viral of her. There is this post where someone's like, hear me out, which is supposed to be like, it's not really a fully agreeable opinion, but hear me out. But their hear me out was just a video of Megan Good looking good, which doesn't apply. You can't say hear me out that Megan Good looks good because we all know that. But like the picture looked like something that was, a candid that was posted to like an Instagram story or something. So I feel like she probably does love and appreciate the dogs or whatever, but she also just normally posts things that she's doing candidly. Whereas Grace Jabbari, not so much, but she goes out of her way to signal that she's with Jonathan Majors again with I Love You So Much in July 2022.
And she's walking the dogs when he was like, oh, you want to walk the dogs? Oh, sure. Great. Thanks for the assist. You're gonna make my evening.
I'm gonna take the video the video of them the whole time. I'm gonna show them at the beach. I'm gonna show a picture of myself in a private pool at your house. Show my friends that I'm living the life out here that I'm isolated from. So, which to me, I feel like if she was allowed to post Jonathan Majors' face, she would have been all but happy to do so. So, if we jump to the September 2022, because we just see in July, she's like, oh, I had to deal with his stress. Woe is me. Instead of just being like a normal supportive girlfriend while your boyfriend's method acting. But September, we get her testimony, and this is still on direct. She's going to talk about the suicide texts and how they impacted her and changed her, how they gave her grief. And a little bit of a mention of, her birthday and Priya, but she barely wants to talk about it on direct. So this is like 2 pages here. But after you offered to come to his place of work, you had stated earlier. So he sends these messages in September that he's not feeling good. She's like, well, I'll come up there. And he's like, no, I'm already talking to a therapist on set. I'm not going to harm myself, that kind of thing. Reassured me, so I didn't come. What sounds like the issue here? Who wants to go where? And what's the issue? The fact that he says, no, you don't need to show your face. It's handled.
The answer coming out of her mouth hurts her.
But people can't help it because when your stance and your perception of things is based in an emotional reaction, that's always going to come to the surface in a stronger way than logic and just a straight, level-headed recall of something.
So you mean supporting victims, that emotional reaction, the immediate when
you see someone cry, you have to empathize with it and sympathize with it. Yeah, that. Like, just human psychology. Can't really fault someone for it, but it sucks that people aren't more aware of it when they're in a position to make a decision that can be wrongfully impacted by that kind of emotional reaction.
Plus, it hurts that he was arrested by the cops on that day. So, like, what comes with that is assumed guilt. Like,
The
someone's
cops
going,
found.
yeah, the
Yeah.
cops found a reason that day. So, who am I to doubt the cops? I'd have to question everything I believe in if I start
We've
questioning
all,
cops.
we've all questioned cops for 2, 3, 4 years straight now, but since this involves a crying female, obviously the cops are trustworthy here and they did the right thing to protect her.
Mm.
That's the exception about that evening, that morning.
I thought the Priya Chaudhry or Zuckerman, they did a good job of discrediting these cops and showing how crooked that they were, but that didn't matter to the jury.
No, and honestly, I don't know. I feel like that was probably boring testimony to listen to. I can't imagine these 6 jurors, having to sit through like the young thug, like 6 months and beyond trial. Like they couldn't even keep it together for just shy of 2 weeks of testimony.
Mm.
That wasn't even full court days because the judge was like having people come in at like 10 and 11 and leaving by 4 and taking an hour and 15 lunches. But imagine like one of those straight 9 to 5 courtrooms, hour lunch, in and out. Don't be late. We'll stay late even. We'll stay till 6:30 today. All right. That's a way different thing. And I don't think these jurors could have handled it because they were falling asleep in the first week. So she's claiming this. He's depressed. I have to save him all the time. But then she testifies. He said he didn't need me to come save him and show up. He was getting it handled. He was going to a therapist. So contradiction. And then she's going to talk about how this impacted her. So how did the defendant's text message...
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
They would not have known he went to a therapist. I don't think it's ever come up. Like, it's not like he gets asked a question about it, but she needed to show you he's got mental health problems. And so she mentioned his therapist.
Yeah. Which is kind of like, we praise that in every other situation now, but in this situation, everyone's like, oh, he's suicidal. He needed therapy. He's clearly an abusive, bad person. But we've been trying to advocate, not me personally, not saying I don't advocate for it generally, but I mean, there's been like discourse, top level discourse. And, you go on YouTube and you see videos about it. Big podcasts, popular podcasts, Twitter trending. Yeah, there's like all of this, like,
that girl in my car,
crowd support.
Do you guys see the BetterHelp ad? The girls in her car, getting therapy is so useful. She's like so convincing to me. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be like you.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's like supposed to be so, like, super candid user generated content. Like, this is my raw testimonial.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, she sounds like she wants to get an affiliate commission or is getting paid by BetterHelp. But that's just me.
Voice. I like the curls in her hair.
You want to be happy just like the girl in the video.
Yeah, I think her name was Stephanie too.
No way.
No.
It could be. So she goes on, they ask her, how did the defendant's text messages speaking about you not giving him a hug and threatening suicide impact you in their relationship? So he's suicidal. Oh my God. How did it impact you? I just felt like I was existing in his world, Just existing in his world involuntarily. Just existing in his world. And emotionally and physically. And all these ways just didn't really feel... Can you explain to the members of the jury what you mean by that? I think I just had really low self-esteem. I lost a lot of weight, felt really unconfident. I felt really dependent on him at the same time. Because, as I said, he was the only one who knew what went on. So it affected the relationship because I honestly found it hard too. I still did try and see my friends and family, but every time I saw them, I felt like I was lying to them. Sorry, so she's crying again. I felt like I was lying to them, so I felt like, I just felt isolated, I guess. Now, the theme of this video is define isolation. Because she said this more than once, that she felt isolated during the relationship. She felt isolated because of March 25th and what happened. She goes on her future. She's isolated because of March 25th. So she's characterizing herself.
She
was in Barbie. She's on a huge cast. She was in something Mission Impossible. She has like her work relationships, right? Because she says, Holly says, well, hey, we would hang out like after we'd work on the set for a day. I was separate from her other friends, meaning this Glastonbury festival friends that she knew for 8, 9, 10 years. Probably would have been 8 or 9 years as of 2022. Holly's like, I'm very separate from that. But we know that she meets Holly and Ben Toddy maybe 2015, but at least by 2016. And that's when you start to see her do a lot more work with Box Artist Management and Holly Blakey's choreography company. So a lot of the shows that Holly Blakey's doing, Grace is a part of. But she has a friend, after work, let's go get drinks together. I do that with my friends when I used to waitress. We'd go to do karaoke after. When they'd be done hanging out, she would go over and hang out with Holly at her house. They'd become friends. So even while she was busy with work, she still had social interaction. She still had conversations. And that's all aside from the fact that she sprinkles in these Glastonbury friends that Holly seems to have separated herself from. She sees them in June. She sees them in July. We're going to see other pictures of her sprinkled throughout, November, December, January. She's still friends with them now.
But in between, she's isolated.
For like 1 second. But she's traveling overseas and wants to not spend 3 weeks away from somebody. And they only they know each other. They meet in the end of August. And starting the timeline from there through March 25th, that's 1 year and 7 months. Mm-hmm. So where is this opportunity to even be isolated if there's at least once a month, there's you hanging out with friends? And it seems like you hang out with your friends regularly, your choreography friends, after you're done on the set for the day. How does that add up when you're also testifying when we do have fights? Like in the September fight, one of the days, I run over and hang out with my friends. Like we go and hang out and talk about what Jonathan just did because he wanted me to pack my stuff and get out of the house. I go and talk to them about it, and then I come back, and when you ask me why I start recording this great man speech, you go, oh, well, I felt really empowered because my friends recommended, and I just wanted to remember it, and I just felt really strong walking back up in there. So did you talk to your friends or did you not? Because you're saying here, I found it really hard. I was the only one who knew what went on. He was the only one who knew what went on. But you testify that you go and tell your friends what's specifically going on in your relationship. As of September, everything was fine in the beginning. You say this problem starts at the end of June. July, you fly across the ocean to go visit him. You post on Instagram exactly where you're visiting him. By September, he's upset, and then you're upset that you can't come up on set to comfort him because he doesn't need you to show up when he has professional help to help him with what he needs. You're upset that you can't show up on set. And then
that was
you
a
take it
good Instagram story that he just cost her.
Right? He could have oh my God, love being there for my friends. Love you so much. And then it took a picture of his shoe or something. So it wasn't like she was really putting him on blast.
Lights, camera, action.
So yeah, Aisha, girl, we saw the pictures. You didn't lose no weight and you chose alcohol over food. And yeah, there's some parts where she looks a little bit more, when she turned herself in, she looked a little bit more, so that would have been October 2023. Mm-hmm. She did look a little bit more plush in the face. And I don't really think she looked as plush when trial came around. But that's still watching, October.
Right? You just called her fat. She's watching this.
Whatever. I hope I don't send you down another spiral of, issues that you've clearly dealt with longer than your relationship with Jonathan Majors.
And I wrote your name on my wall, so we're good.
Wait, you have whose name on the wall? Oh, to Jabbari. But you need to write Grace, Caitlin, Natasha, Jabbari. It's really hard. Okay, so I agree. It's really hard to take anything she says seriously. It's always contradicted 2 questions later. Well, and sometimes you see the prosecution try to ask a specific question and constrain it. And then her answer still goes off into la inconsistency land. Mm-hmm. So that's also really funny because the prosecutor must have been like, girl, no. Her finger wasn't broken or swollen, just red, and pushing her hair multiple times behind her ear wearing spike earrings can cause a cut. It happened to me. That ear thing, man, that's a paradox to me. I don't understand. You can't convince me it happened in either parts of the car, really.
And I think there was
nobody would have seen it.
Enough sketchiness to discredit anything that she would say. Not to mention the freaking driver says it was all her.
It was all her.
But
it was all
you
her.
Also look at the finger stuff and you're like, okay, well, we see the photo at 11 in the morning, but it wasn't like that after the fight.
At 3 in the morning, it was still... I think it's possible it happened in the car part 2, which would explain why you don't see it in the footage at all when they meet on the sidewalk, which would have been when the friends had a good look at it, right? Because after that, especially if she ends up hurting it in car part 2, she could be trying to be on her phone. She could be trying, and her finger's going to be under that. She could be in the dark part of the cab. You're going to be in a darker club. you know, it's not as common. But when you're first meeting someone on the sidewalk, you're probably more apt to be looking at them in their face and figure out who the hell they are, right? So it makes sense that she probably didn't have that injury at that point in time, but she could have gotten it minutes later and they wouldn't have known because it was dark. And then they're all
Could you have
drunk.
said that she injured her finger when she was in car too, when she's pulling on him and ripping it? It
Yep.
was her right hand.
Well, because you've seen the fingernail bend, right? The dent from her fingernail being bent backwards. Her middle finger that's injured, she has a bent back mark on her finger. You guys have all bent your fingernail back, and it creates that like extra like line from where the skin actually detaches from your finger. So she says on testimony she hits him with her right hand. The next morning, Galloway gets up there and has to correct it, and she's like, "Oh, I actually don't remember what hand it was, and he pushed me." But she's also telling on the body cam at 11:31 in the morning on March 25th. She won't admit to it in court, but they play it for her over and over. She's saying, Priya's like, and right there, pause it right there. Did you just say that the cause of your injuries is what happened in car part 2 when you ripped Mr. Major's buttons and coat pocket?
Yeah.
She's like, no, I'm sorry. Do I have to watch this? I don't want to. I don't want to play this. She's going into that, but she has a bend mark on her fingernail.
Yeah.
So if you're pulling someone down because they're up and trying to get out, and you said you were seated in the seat and you're lunging up at them, if you're grabbing on something and yanking it down, your fingernail's going to bend up and back. And you're going to have a nice, just like she does, you're going to have a nice line there from your nail bending back in that way. I don't know how you would have that from someone twisting your finger or prying it backwards. That doesn't make sense to me. And that has nothing to do with the fracture, right? That all comes down to how this bent back nail would make sense. She tried to testify it was just nail shellac.
It was just nail shellac. So they don't go for the nails. Let's just pretend that they weren't going for the ear thing. They were going for, the jury said, we saw a video, you carried her. That was an unconsentful physical action. And she bumped her head also. And that's two moments where you're guilty. Even though she tried to convince
the head bunk.
Remember this? Like she said, where is it? Play.
I don't think that's quite what happens.
So she bumps her head here, right? And we know it's a head bump. But the time where he gets her in the car, she denied that. Like this one that we're seeing on screen, over here. This one that we're watching on screen, she didn't bump my head. No, I didn't bump my head at all. That's not a head bump at all. But
no, just like I didn't run after him or chase him.
Crazy. I'll find the other one, but like they must be going.
Well, why you're showing that? I mean, remember how she described being in the club? I felt empowered. I felt like an independent woman, as if it was some different, out of body, new, unique experience.
Yeah.
From whatever. But if we look,
did they believe her?
I mean, her whole life is this. Her whole life is a party. Like she's gonna be like cheering drunk. She's gonna be. This is just a concert too. This isn't even a club. She's going crazy and bananas. If we go to the actual Glastonbury videos, and there's a lot. She's not in all of them. A lot of them, the girl's really into music. The influencer. I think she's like friends with Bonobo. She's always like backstage with them. But like when you do see Grace Jabbari peeking, and she's always like, just like she is in the head bonk video. So why would you describe your demeanor when you're hanging out at Lucy's as some unique, one-off, rare experience where you felt empowered when this is you in 2022 while you're dating Jonathan Majors? Will you do the same thing in 2023 after you say you feel like the abuse that you were in and subjected to? She testifies that's how she felt after March 25th, 2023. You go into Glastonbury and do the same thing all over again. How was your night at Lucy's some type of rare and unique empowerment moment for you? You were in your element because that's what you're used to doing for 10 years. And I don't see a reason that you have to frame it any other type of way. I really don't. I'm not trying to... This video is not about people going out and having a good time. This video is about going out and having a good time and living your life and then trying to come back and say someone abused you and isolated you and tried to control you because they broke up with you. That's the only point of this video. So shout out to her friends. Look fun. Her friends look like, you stick with the same friends for 10 years. It's pretty cool. You guys look like you have a good time and have each other's back. I don't know that they know Grace Jabbari played them for a fool. None of that's the point of this video. The point of this video is Grace Jabbari took all of that stuff, knew the jury wouldn't see it, and just tried to hit them with the okie doke. And at the same time, because the trial's not televised, she hopes that her friends probably won't get wind of it. I really think that. Because she complains in her own testimony, oh, what happened after 2025, March 25th, 2023 really sucks because, everything that was being said about me, my friends, my family, I had to tell them things. You don't want them to know what? Because you told them you were fighting with Jonathan Majors when you were fighting with Jonathan Majors. You lied about that too, but you were talking to your friends. So they knew something already. What is it that you didn't want them to find out?
Maybe what was blacked out of the text messages from...
anything that you were like a crybaby and broke. So I have some other testimony in here where we get into, how she was asking Jonathan for money in February 2023 and needed money to afford a hotel in London when he wasn't even near her. So maybe you don't want your friends finding that out because they all live the same routine lifestyle where they can go to these concerts and these festivals and travel as a group. There's plenty of photos of these friends traveling together to Greece, whatever. They're well enough off that they can do that. Maybe she didn't want to come off as, hey, I have to bail. I can't afford that right now. So she wants to frame it as, I have a traumatic relationship. That's why I couldn't come and do that stuff with you. Despite Jonathan Majors flying her out to Hawaii and then flying her friends out to New York City, flying her back to London, flying her friends from London to visit her in the United States. It all just seems like she's insecure and wants to look a certain way to people at all times. And she doesn't mind throwing someone under the bus to be able to come off the way she wants to come off in a certain situation. So that's how I'm feeling. Heck yeah, everyone should keep talking about Jonathan Majors. And by the way, if you guys, something really sticks out to you, something that grinds your gears, leave it as a static comment anytime you're watching a video about Jonathan Majors, because if someone comes across this video that doesn't know and isn't looking at this the way we all are, because you guys are in here with a magnifying glass sometimes, they're not going to see these points if they're not being talked about in the static comments, the ones that are just under a video and not part of the live chat. So sprinkle all the gems, all the juicy details.
They've got
sprinkle that. Yeah, when it's done, when this video ends. But in general, even when you see a video on demand, anyone talking about Jonathan Majors, you can put a comment in there. I'm not saying you guys are the type of people that will form your opinion because of the comment section somewhere, but it is a way that a lot of people learn new details that they didn't know before if they can't follow an hour-long video or, take in all the details that are in one video at the same time. So comments can help people kind of digest the nuggets, and we can all leave those nuggets on any Jonathan Majors video out there. So that's just one thing. But yeah, definitely Alvis, keep supporting him. And I have to do a Creed 3 stream with Chillmonger. It's the first Jonathan Majors thing I've ever watched.
You saw it?
We'll have to schedule that. Yeah, I watched it already.
Yes.
Because of you. I went and watched it. So we can schedule that.
See, now what you got to do is read the Creed comic books also.
Oh God, you're ready.
2, 3, and 4. Yeah. You gotta be on the ball with the Creed comic books.
Who commented that? Was it Josh Johnson in his skit?
What?
That Jabbari should have been Apollo Creed the way she was running?
Yeah, he said it. The first thing you're supposed to learn, Jonathan, is Bob. I don't know how you got hit.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I mean by funny. I don't care that he's making a light out of the situation. I don't even care if he's wrong about things. It's stand-up comedy. I don't. No,
I think he did it. I think he did it skill. I can see why he has good following in general. Besides, even though it's the only thing I first heard of him through. And I haven't clicked anything else from him, but I'm sure YouTube, they'll start dropping the extra content. Yeah.
I saw a thumbnail about that guy who jumped over into the judge. That happened a month ago.
Is he doing one on that?
Yeah, that was a thumbnail. So I'm I actually want to hear what he's got to say about this because I know he's.
I feel bad for that judge. That's got to be so awkward because then you can't even. I don't know how it's set up back there, but I feel there's probably little steps next to you and you're probably falling off of that. You can't just stand up on a flat ground because usually that's raised up, right? Like a judge's little pulpit thing. Yeah. Can you imagine getting tackled and then you can't even stand up back there? And then you're on video getting I don't even falling in public.
I'm not even sure that she was really hurt because he's still restricted when the guy's trying to jump into you. So you probably were hit by his momentum of his physical body, but those are not full with the wind up punches and kicking and stuff? Because even your legs, they're tied together.
They said that he was like the character Ronnie in Raising Kanan. I don't know if there's anyone in the chat that watches the Power series. I think it's the third one. Raising Kanan's the third one. But there's a character Ronnie who's like, I guess, sociopathic. He doesn't really have emotions or empathy. He's just the acting is phenomenal because when he's on the screen, people could be having dialogue, but he really pays attention to his own body language. Like, he'll be adjusting different coats on the coat racks to make them line up, and he's always just like... like, people were making jokes that was like him, if like in real life, just like jumping over in that stiff body language, jumping over at the judge when he finally loses it.
That's a cool character.
I should watch Lovecraft. I'm sure it's probably on one of like the streaming things, right?
HBO.
Is that like a HBO? Okay, fine. I'll sign up for HBO. I think it's $4.99. But I do need a new show. And then what else is good? The Harder They Fall. And then, yeah, that guy landed on the judge. And then the other guy was, like, hitting the guy that jumped while he's still laying on the judge. So I wonder if, like, the judge is, like, feeling, like, the force of each time. Like, she's just in a bad position.
I don't even know if
and then on camera.
Did she deserve it, though? Like, was she on some Michael Gaffey? I don't know. Sometimes these judges, I don't have sympathy.
I don't even know. I don't know. But I know that they said, like, he actually has, like, it wasn't just, like, some weird vengeance plot. It was, like, they weren't giving him his medication that he was normally on because he was being held this whole time, and he didn't have the medication that he's normally on, and that contributed to it. So,
she could have
I don't know the full context, but it's kind of like, yeah, maybe, sure. But it's, like, one of those issues where, like, the criminal justice system is supposed to help people, but they put him in a position to look worse during sentencing. So during sentencing, you're now jumping over at the judge, but maybe if you're on your medication, as you should be given your prescriptions while you're being held, while you're incarcerated. You may not have done this thing that looks really bad for you during sentencing. So you get what I'm getting at? Like, to me, my sympathy's got to be with the guy, even though the physical act is a wrong thing that you don't want to see that happen, right?
I guess.
When you look at the context behind it, and yeah, it can be funny GIF moments, right? When you look at the context behind it, that could have been prevented if either he wasn't incarcerated and could have been taking his prescription on his own free will, or if they gave him the prescription he was supposed to be getting. That's my understanding of what was happening. But they let him lose his mind, quite literally, in a really bad time to lose your mind during a sentencing period.
I have more to say, but we're way off topic.
Okay. Well, do you want to do a stream about Judge Jumping Lady Guy?
No, we're good.
Okay. Well, put a pin in it and decide. And then I want to say, hey, Tracker, that's my fault. I just go live when I know I have a few hours because as soon as I'm done with this, I have other stuff I'm going to get to doing. So when I go live, it's just because I have the time to squeeze it in. And if I don't do it, it won't happen. And he says, hey to Chill too.
Hi.
And then, Ronnie Myers. Oh my God, that's actually really good because he does just be showing up behind people. Okay, so the judge made a comment.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I think so. The only stuff I saw, I didn't have audio. All I know is that afterwards they came out and they said that he's supposed to be on prescriptions that he was not. Was Ant-Man filmed before or after Creed 3?
Before. Ant-Man was like delayed. And it
like
takes
COVID
a long time to
delays
do
and
post-production.
And then, hey, sissy. And then, I don't worry, totally forgive you. I'm looking forward to listening to you guys when I land. Safe travels. I hate being in airports. I really do.
He's in the air right now and he's got internet?
Oh, but you don't have internet at Glastonbury? No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about the signal at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
Let's see. So wait. What page am I on here? Because I have them marked here. 85, we want to go through 86. So they're talking about, oh, okay, cool, yeah, so this part. So they get done talking about how she feels isolated because he felt suicidal, even though we have all these pictures now of her hanging out, Glastonbury in 2022, or her wedding with her friends in July of 2022, Glastonbury in June of 2022. She goes back and does all these same things after the breakup. She's coming up with this whole story of isolation. Then she goes on, she moves forward on direct to January 13th. Now, Ms. Jabbari directing your attention to January 13th, 2023. Were you still in a relationship with the defendant? Yes. How was the relationship at that point? It was
Whoa,
good.
hold on,
Yeah.
hold on. Were you still in a relationship?
That's a slip, right?
There's been breaks in between the relationship, weren't they? It was not a seamless relationship that was ongoing all the time.
So helpful if you want to understand some of the timeline. Danny and Pam, they both syndicated the stream, so it's on both their channels, and both links to those streams for both of their channels are in the description here. But there's more than what's in this little timeline picture here. But in short, remember, September is the Toronto Film Festival, that red carpet scene, and then Drunk Pub, the Great Man speech, is also September 2022. And then while he's meeting with a journalist from Men's Health magazine to prepare for an interview that's going to publish in the October issue, the journalist ends up tweeting on October 11th. So it could be she got the message from him that day and tweeted that same day. It could have been from a few days before. But she says that Jonathan's like, I'm very much single. October 2022. And then January 13th, we are here, where she's saying, hey, were you in the relationship with the defendant still? Well, technically, I guess yes. How was the relationship at that point? It was good, yeah. What do you mean by that? We just had Christmas, and he spent it with my family in England, and my birthday, and he had been very generous and kind with my friends, and it was really nice, yeah. It felt like a really nice start. We spent New Year's even together in the new house in New York, and it felt like a really nice time. I know you mentioned your family. You said you hadn't spoken with your family about any of the issues in your relationship. Correct. Was there anyone you did speak with about the relationship? Yes. Who is that? His manager. So we get into that whole thing about why she starts talking to Priya Satyani. But really what was happening, she's describing January as being great. She just spent December, New Year's, Christmas with the family, New Year's in New York City, and going to this very fun trip. And I can only blurt the music in because they'll cut my stream off. But they go to the Carey concert. And you can see this spans multiple days. This is December 2022 for her 30th birthday. Here, actually, let me not cover that. But yeah, so they go through, just first of all, just imagine how expensive this trip is. These are her Glastonbury Festival friends that he was so unhappy about, but yet he pays for the whole group of them to come out. And Jonathan Majors, I think I see his hands because it looks a little melanated in one group shot. You know when you take a picture of everyone holding the glasses together? You see his hand one time, and then he's in the limo one of the times. But all of these other times, that's his hand, I think, is right there. It looks a little dark, so I'm assuming that that's his hand, but maybe not. Maybe it's just the lighting. So he's visible there, and then he's visible not in this part of the limo, but you see him in the background there, and watch her face right here, by the way. I thought this was funny because it looks like he's trying to move forward and plan the next step or something, and she's trying to talk to him, and all of her friends are having a good time, but she looks like she's in his ear about something back here. Ready? What is that? And I'm reading tea leaves there, right? This is just a split second, but... But yeah, so then she's like, oh, January, we're still together, everything's really nice. So if we think about the whole context of their relationship, right? This story that she was isolated and controlled, and it was a pattern of abuse, and all these incidences... They're only together, they only know each other for a year and 7 months. They spend every day together for the beginning of the relationship, and she loves that. When they stop spending as much time together, she's trying to make sure she goes and visits him. She's the one flying overseas to stay with him, and then she gets there, and she brags about being there, love you so much, his dogs, LA, Los Angeles. That's inconsistent with the idea of you having to hide everything from people. Then we have your testimony that you talk to the friends and family when you get in a fight with him in September. You go and talk to your friends, and then you come back and start recording him because you just talked to your friends and felt strong. But then you say you don't tell your friends because you feel isolated. Then you say, oh, I finally did talk to someone, and that choice of person is his manager, Priya Satyani, January 13th. But why would you do that, of all people, if you're still maintaining that you couldn't talk to anybody? And in fact, things were actually really awesome. You just had a really nice start. You're talking about this new house in New York that you're supposed to be the one to decorate. You just had your friends all out. Why would you, in that same time period, start talking to someone's manager? So what I love about this next part is it's where Priya comes in, and let me make sure. This one, cool. So we get to cross, and Priya comes in, and she challenges this relationship timeline. And Danny and Pam do a great job adding in like pop culture context to that, right? Like pictures from the festival, the Men's Health magazine interview, all of those different details. But Priya adds them in enough to paint the picture that Grace Jabbari is misrepresenting the relationship. So this is Priya now. Now, Ms. Jabbari, you testified that you and Mr. Majors were in a relationship, correct? Correct. And that it was an intimate relationship, correct? Correct. And it began in August 2021, correct? Correct. And you shared a lot of about yourself with each other, correct? You met each other's families. You spent holidays with each other's families. You wanted to marry him, is that right? Yes. And you wanted to have children with Mr. Majors. Yes. And you knew about Mr. Majors' background because of your relationship with him. ADA Perez objects. Chaudhry rewords. The thing Mr. Majors shared about himself are included some of his upbringing, right? And then, hold on. Pam said Grace Jabbari was using Satyani to fish for Cleo info. Totally possible. Or just fish for info in general. So, you know, you're his work manager. He's busy with work. He's going to tell me not to plan my life around his work schedule. He's seeming to not wanting me to be near his work. He doesn't want me to come up on set and, hey, everyone, he's suicidal. So how am I going to find out what he's doing on set if I can't barge my way in there? Oh, he has a manager. And I also need money of my own. So all of these dots that overlap and connect look really bad for Grace Jabbari's story of how this relationship went. And yeah, Rosemary says, the more I watch these videos, the more upset I get. Me too. I went down a rabbit hole on accident, and then I was like, oh, this is fucked up. Because I assumed, hey, maybe she had Holly come out and go to Mariah Carey concert with her. Really innocent, right? Holly doesn't seem to drink that much. Doesn't seem to like that lifestyle. But it was all the friends that he was supposed to be controlling about from Glastonbury. Why it just doesn't add up. So Priya's asking, you know, he was born in California, and you lived with Mr. Majors at least twice, correct? Now think about dependency, financial issues, her having to go visit him, even though she could have stayed her ass where she was, if she wanted to later claim that she was controlled and isolated, can't leave the house, can't go see friends. You, in fact, live with Mr. Majors at least twice, correct? I didn't actually hear the first bit of the question. Sorry, I'm trying not to shout because I'm right over Mr. Perez. Ms. Jabbari, you have lived with Mr. Majors at least twice, correct? Correct. Once in London, you told us. Yes. And once in New York, right? Yes. And you and Mr. Majors also, aside from living together, spent a lot of time together, right? Yes. Now, this is important, more important than I realized when I first read it. And you also exchanged a lot of photos with each other, right? Yes. And one of the reasons for that is because you were often separated, right? Yes.
Often
so you're sending pictures.
Being controlled. Remember that. You know, it's the classic case of separation, communication, incarceration. It's just what she has with Jonathan.
And think about, and this is where you guys in the chat, and Chill, you'll know too, but the way she lines up the timeline, and I think she does this just as much, not to kind of like put the idea in the jury's head, but I think she does it to razzle. This is the very beginning of cross-examination. I think she does this just as much to rattle Jabbari. Hey, I know you're bullshit. And even though I won't get away with saying it out loud explicitly, they'll object to it. It'll be sustained. The judge will call me up to the desk. I think she knows this will get under Jabbari's skin. So one of the reasons is that you're often separated, right? Yes. So you've seen a lot of photos of Mr. Majors, right? And in fact, you yourself had what you called a folder of photos of Mr. Majors, right? I'm unsure about that. You had
Huh?
an album that
You're unsure about the folders in your phone that you made. You either did it or you didn't. That's
Yeah,
pretty
I think
specific.
it's annoying to have to make a folder. I'm like, oh, I have to right click and then hit new folder and then I have to name it. I remember doing that. You know what I mean? I know I have that folder. You make a folder so you know it's there. So you know
You've
you can
seen the
just go and
folder.
find everything there.
Like, to ask that question is because we know it exists.
Yep, and if anything, we don't even know if it's on the phone that they got to look at. If this is on the other phone, then that's even more true that Jonathan Majors had to have known about it.
And she knows
So-
that they don't have access to the other phone.
Yep. But there's another reason she does this. There's two reasons I think she's doing this. To get under her skin, to point out that they were separated. That's one thing. The other is it goes back to her trying to introduce this photo that Grace Jabbari lied about not recognizing Jonathan Majors' clothes because it was the pictures of his injuries. So I'm unsure about that. You had an album that you kept of photos of Mr. Majors that you would look at when he was traveling and you weren't together. Is that correct? Maybe some albums, yeah. So now it could be more than one. You are familiar with what Mr. Majors looks like, right? Yes.
Oh yeah.
And you
yeah,
are familiar with what Mr. Majors is wearing. So this whole page is going to go into this exhibit, 100, 101, and 102. She won't even, they're objecting to and they're sustaining it already because they do not want her to lay foundation for these injury photos of Jonathan Majors.
Mhm.
Because in the beginning of Cross, she had, or in another part of Cross, she had said, I don't really recognize that could have been his shirt. It looks like his beard and face, but I don't know that those are his clothes that he's wearing in that picture. And they decide that that's not foundation enough. Those pictures can't come in because the t-shirt isn't corroborated as being his.
Amazing.
It's his beard and his face, but we don't know that it's his shirt.
I recognize the beard.
So that was one little bit here I thought was very interesting while I was looking at this to tie it into the isolation claim. But that little bit, you see it's like half a page. And the judge, the ADA, jump on it to sustain it right away, and she's playing dumb. Do you know who took that photo? No, they're objecting. But really it circles back to, getting to know him. You received a master's from the Yale School of Drama, right? I wasn't aware it was a master's, but I know he went to the Yale School of Drama. Yes, you're meeting, you know him. So we've established just in this small part of Cross that you're separated from each other a lot. He's obviously not holding you down under lock and key. You know what he looks like. And this is, you dated him since August 2021. Even though you said it was 2 years, it's like 1 year, 7 months. So they go into the background. You get to meet his mom. You learn he grew up in Texas. And then where do we get to? It's a bunch of objections. He travels with the Bible. And then you're with his whole family at Thanksgiving, meaning November of 2022. Yes, before our meal. There's pictures of her. I don't know if I actually uploaded them in here. But she hung out with her friends in November 2022. I have a bunch of pictures from that too. So she's traveling to the United States to celebrate Thanksgiving, but she's also hanging out with her friends, even though she's isolated during all these times. And then this is where it gets important. Ms. Jabbari, you're aware that Mr. Majors went to Sundance Film Festival in 2022 for his film magazine Dreams, correct? Correct. So, you wanted to go with him to that festival, correct? That was the plan, yeah? She doesn't actually go. Why do you guys think that is? And why do you think she would say that was the plan? Yeah. So, obviously you guys can piece that together, but Pam and Danny break it down with such gusto that I'm going to recommend that you guys watch them break down this specific, red carpet event that Grace Jabbari wasn't allowed to be present for. And then you're aware that Mr. Majors presented at the Oscars this year in February, correct? So this is February 2023. This is where we get some great details coming in about her finances and codependency at the very end of their relationship. Objection again as to relevance. The judge wants the tea, so he allows it.
The great relevance of that is you get to show how high profile and accomplished this man is and how much of a bum she is. Chaudhry wanted the jury to hear he was at the Oscar. This is an Oscar caliber actor.
Yep. And then also that the way she answered, I'm sure the tone wasn't just flat out, that was the plan. Yeah, it was probably like, that was the plan. So you went from weepy boohoo crying to now you have an attitude because you have to say you didn't get to go to a festival. After you testified that you were controlled from going to a festival. You were mad,
You're asserting that's how she's answered the question. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah, that's true. That's valid enough. But she says that was the plan. So obviously she didn't go. And then Oscars in February. Are you aware? Yes. And you watched that, correct? Yes. So if you're watching it, where are you watching it? You didn't go. You're watching it on TV. And you met, as you stated, while Mr. Majors was filming Ant-Man, right? Yes, I was working on it as well, yes. And during your relationship, Mr. Majors was also promoting his film Creed 3. Yeah, during our relationship, he shot and then promoted Creed 3, yes. And in the summer of 2022, when you lived with Mr. Majors in London, Mr. Majors was filming Loki, correct? Correct. And in that, he would send you photos of himself dressed in the various costumes of Kang, correct? So what is this? What does that mean? Yeah, in general, you lived with Mr. Majors, but you weren't stuck being with him the whole time because you're sending pictures.
Yeah, you're not
And
there.
why were you sending pictures to yourself? So this is the part that I didn't really, this line here, I didn't tie it to what we just read 2 pages ago. Because she did try to slip in and lay that foundation for those photos without Grace Jabbari being able to figure out what she was trying to do. Grace Jabbari figured it out and played dumb. But this detail here, she's establishing that you weren't near each other because you were sending each other photos like you do when you're apart from each other. So during this Loki time where you just testified, because that was what, September, right? If they're in London, September-ish, London. You're saying, oh, you had to walk on eggshells and be near him. He needed you at his beck and call because he was suicidal and you had to always calm him down and take care of him. But yet, why is he sending you pictures like he does when you're separated? So maybe Priya could have laid that out a little bit stronger here. Because I didn't catch it, and I'm not sure. I remember someone in the chat really noticing it, and you guys notice everything. But then she goes in, and you told this jury that your relationship with Mr. Majors was 2 years, correct? I believe I said, well, I was asked how long we had been together at some point, and I said in August of that year would have been 2 years. I didn't do the math exactly. Almost 2 years. End of August 2021 is when it began, correct? Correct, yes. And the relationship ended at the end of March 2023, correct? Correct. So do the math, that's a year and 7 months. And then they go into the recording. And the point with the recording there, when you think about it, is we all know this. He's saying, I'm a great man, I'm trying to do great things, and you're just not even giving 50% to meet me there. Other people aren't realizing that. So I don't think we need to rehash that because everyone that's been part of this chat kind of already knows that. It's probably like beating a dead horse at this point. But do you have any thoughts, Chill?
No, yeah, let's skip right after it. Like,
Yeah.
Sure. But I don't care.
So let's see. The next thing I marked was, let's go to Sag Harbor.
I have no problem with people calling themselves great man. You know,
no, me either. Especially, how am I gonna, if I'm gonna sit there and be like, boo-hoo, he's suicidal all the time and it makes me have to do work to cheer him up. Wouldn't I be happy when he's starting to feel like he's a good man? Because wouldn't that mean that I can stop having my own life dragged down all the time by my boo-hoo crying boy? That's how she treats him. That's really how she makes all that sound. Like, oh, it's so inconvenient to me that he's going through a tough time. Like, so wouldn't you be glad that he's finally starting to have confidence?
How do you date if you're a celebrity? Because you can't take non-celebrities with you because this what'll happen to you, right? You kind of have to date another celebrity who just doesn't want all of this in the news. Because breakups happen. 50% of relationships, marriages break up. So when here comes Sissy Majors, she's a liar. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we can just leave that pinned. We can just leave it pinned. It will never not be relevant to anything I talk about in this stream. Hold on, wait. Kenny's gonna hold her. I'll pay to see that. Wait, do you mean like if Grace Jabbari wants to come on my screen? I will totally interview Grace, Caitlin, Natasha Jabbari. And I'll be fair, like, because I actually really want to know what's going on, right? Like, I'll ask questions because I want to know the answers. I'm not going to ask questions because I want to bite someone's head off. I'm going to ask questions because there's things I need to understand what's going on.
So my first question would be this. You were initially out of the country. You didn't show up for that October date, which was supposed to be the first day of trial. And then sometime later, here you are back in the country. Was there a negotiation between yourself and the Manhattan District Attorney? If I testify,
we can just interview Erin Tierney, ADA Erin Tierney. She'll tell us she cut a deal in exchange for cooperation.
Was that in the
So,
Messenger? Is that where we read that?
uh, hold on. I have.
Insider? It's okay. Don't worry
It
about it.
was 3 different articles.
All
It was.
right.
I don't think it was actually. I think it might have been Insider and not.
All right.
I think it was Insider.
That's the first question I
Aaron
would ask.
Tierney, Insider. I don't know. Will my link show up if I paste them in here?
But
This
she
is
acts
where
like
we
a survivor
see.
too. She does. There it is. So she claims to be like somebody who is a victim of something. So she's not gonna be like, all right, yo, here's the real tea. Yes, I still wanted to get back with him. That's why I sent those text messages on March 26th talking about you got the best team. Let's get back together. I'll make sure this goes away. It wasn't strangulation. Like, yeah, that's why I was still trying to be with him. She'll never tell you that.
Yep. Nope. But that's okay because I think there's a problem with vagueness. And if someone else wants to believe vagueness, I mean, that's their prerogative too. But if all you can say is like, he was toxic, they were abusive, well, can you give me examples of what you mean by that? And then if you can't give me examples that don't conflict one another, you're going to not sound credible. And I don't really even need to be the one to poke the holes in it. I just need you to speak. And eventually, if what you're saying isn't truthful, you're going to trip over your own toes. Most people are not professional liars,
Most people aren't this good. Here's the part where you said about Manhattan District Attorney. I'm sharing my screen. It says that Attorney Aaron Tierney has vowed not to prosecute any charges that the NYPD brings against the movement coach. The prosecutor has acknowledged that she has struck an informal agreement with Grace Jabbari to have her testify against Majors at trial. This Insider article was written by Laura Italiano, wasn't it? Oh, no, by Janan
This
Fisher.
one was different. Yeah, this one was different.
October 25.
But still, they were on it. So shout out to Insider. And Insider and Business Insider are like they're like umbrella companies of each other. So this is the same Laura Italiano where all those, the initial sidewalk surveillance video was posted. All same thing. Danny Does Law has a great interview with an attorney by the name of Kirby. There's 2 parts. They're both good. The second part, Kirby goes into, and he used to do like prosecutorial work, and now he's a criminal defense attorney. And I think he used to do prosecutorial work. Maybe he's always been a criminal defense attorney. I think he used to be a New York prosecutor. Maybe I'm getting confused with Nate the lawyer, but they both worked in New York at some point. Kirby breaks down why it's significant. I've seen some other attorneys say, well, there's prosecutorial discretion. And that means the prosecutor can just decide, hey, we're not going to charge someone that's making a cross complaint against someone else because then one of them won't be able to testify. They'll both invoke their Fifth Amendment right. But the issue is that that doesn't apply here because the district attorney is still supposed to investigate. They're still supposed to investigate and come up with a reason to charge one person and not the other and be able to substantiate it if asked. Well, we didn't even get to that point with the district attorney of New York. They decided, and they promised on the record, on public record, they said to the media, hey, we cut this informal deal if they decide to bring any charges forward. If the NYPD, separate entity, decides to bring any charges forward, we're already going to drop them. And Ross Kramer, her pro bono appointed attorney from the Sanctuary for Families, a nonprofit in New York that helps domestic violence victims, which she's, putting herself a facade out of being, he came out and said, same thing. They promised us no legal repercussions. So we're walking out, we're going to turn ourselves in, we're going to walk out of this precinct, and the charges will be dropped by the morning, if not tonight. They told us already before, which means they did no investigation. That's a problem, because there's supposed to be an investigation to back the decision of who they're going to charge and why they would make a decision to not charge one person over the other. Kirby breaks it down with real details, and he has real walk and talk experience. So check that out. It's on Danny Does Law channel. Both interviews with him are great, but the one I'm talking about is part of the second interview he did on her channel. Really intelligent guy, breaks it down in layman's terms. But I've seen a few attorneys say, hey, prosecutorial discretion, which is a real thing. It exists, but it doesn't apply here because the NYPD found probable cause, and 2 different detectives in 2 different precincts found probable cause. And the district attorney promised to not they promised no charges before they even did any investigative work themselves. So there's no basis. There can be no basis that they reasonably decided it would be better for us to use our discretion to say we're going to prosecute one party and not the other party in this crossfire complaint. It's a huge problem.
I kind of got to thinking about something else while you were talking. she couldn't identify his shirt in the picture, so they said, okay, we can't show the rest of the jury. Couldn't they go to the cops who had probable cause, right? So what's his name? Lucerio? Hey,
No,
Lucerio.
this was Detective Mejia.
Mejia. Hey, Mejia. This picture over here, do you recognize who that is in the photo? Yes, it's Jonathan Majors. All right, let's show it to the jury now. Couldn't they do that?
Oh, they objected and sustained that. Thanks for the red carpet rollout to that context. So they tried to ask, Priya tries to ask, maybe it was Zuckerman. I think Seth Zuckerman did the questioning of direct examination with Detective Mejia from the 10th Precinct. That was the guy who said, hey, there's probable cause to arrest Grace Jabbari for third-degree domestic assault and criminal mischief. They tried to ask him about these three exhibits. The picture where his face is scratched, his arm scratched, and the blood on the pillow. Danny and Jimmy are sitting in the courtroom on this day, and they see the pictures. The jury can't see it, but from the angle they're sitting at, they see it's these pictures that are being asked about.
Who's holding the pictures?
The defense attorneys. They give a copy to Detective Mejia to try to lay foundation.
So the defense attorney,
it's objected to and sustained.
I got you. They want Jimmy and Danny to see the photos. They want the reporters to see the photos. Everyone needs to know in the courtroom, these are the photos. We're going to hold it at this angle.
Somehow it was seen. But I don't have the transcripts for that, but I believe you would also see, hey, and we're going to show you defense exhibit 100, 101, 102. So I think if I had the transcripts in front of me, they followed the crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Any other time the defense has tried to introduce an exhibit, they do always say what label the exhibit is. If we had the transcripts, I'm sure we would see the same exhibits. And so they asked Grace Jabbari about defense exhibit 100, 101, 102. Yeah. On Ryan Strick's testimony, he's like, those are the only ones I can't say I know the geolocation for. So you'll have to lay foundation another way. So same three exhibits every time. So I guarantee you if we had the Detective Mejia transcripts, you would say, hey, I'm going to hand you what's marked as Defense Exhibit 100. Do you know what this is? Do you recognize this? Yes, the picture Jonathan Majors brought into my precinct when he filed the domestic incident report. And they object to it. It's sustained on whatever grounds. So I don't know the exact details there, but I know those pictures they tried to get him in with Grace Jabbari. She played dumb, and then judge wouldn't let them come in under Detective Mejia, even though he recognized what they were.
That's grounds for appeal.
Fucked up. Yeah, it's fucked up.
So bizarre to me. Like, that's not allowed?
I think that's one of their biggest issues, and I think it rule of completeness, right? You're letting some context in, but not others.
You're also on body camera of the police showing them the same injuries, right? So it's not like it's a secret. Here's just a closer up shot of him. No, the geolocation, my ass.
Just nuts. I think it's all nuts. But yeah, so when we're talking about the photos of the injuries, judge shut it down. And then the police officers don't take any. So that's just to clarify what I think Ms. Lady is specifying here is the police officers, which violates domestic violence protocol, which Officer Swain is specialized in what, Chill? He says violence. His specialization is domestic violence, but he doesn't do a proper investigation. In fact, according to body cam audio, reported through Priya Chaudhry, he's questioning, he says, how did you get the injuries? I don't know, but she hit me. Swain goes, if I slapped you right now, it wouldn't break a finger. They don't take any pictures of his injuries. The pictures we have of Jonathan Majors' destroyed property and his injuries are because he took them himself. What do they tell? What's that thing they always say about victims? Even when they do have proof, they're not believed. So Jonathan Majors, who's the one that took pictures of his injuries with timestamps right away, right after it happened, and who's not believed?
She was defending herself against this behemoth of a man. He was so violent.
Twice my size. Yeah. Didn't Zuckerman debunk Swain's DV title? So I think they more so. I think he said he went on whatever number of. Was it like 36 to 42? It was like 30 to 40 was the range of DV arrests that he said he actually had made, which. It's kind of how did those arrests go? You kind of got to wonder if we've only been able to see how Swain is and then how he testifies and recalls this one incident where you would think you'd be on hyper alert because you're in like a nice shiny penthouse, right? What do you think it would be like if he got called to like, I don't know if his precinct has like much project housing, but imagine he gets like an everyday call to, he said he worked in a different district first, where the calls were a lot more frequent and worse.
Whatever.
So
he's a liar. He's a liar.
He's a liar. But imagine like, he's not even going to try. Imagine what he does for like regular Joe Schmo that has to call in a DV complaint. You know what I'm saying? Like, those people don't have a Priya Chaudhry bringing a case forward and subpoenaing all possible surveillance footage within 24 hours from any possible establishment that could have been frequented that night.
Yeah, these are
you know
the
what I mean? Like,
these are the people who this would have just been a regular night for them, or regular morning for them, a regular shift for them.
no, let's not do the bedroom thing.
Yeah, all right.
That was painful for me. I really felt like I was going crazy. So I've got this Sag Harbor thing on my screen. And I think the last thing that we had just talked about was she decided she's going to confide in Priya. Everything was great in December and January, but she needs to confide in Priya on January 13th anyway, because obviously when things are going really well, you need to talk to someone's manager and start lighting a fire. So I'm going to jump to Sag Harbor because this is a week before March 24th, which I didn't know when we were just talking. We were going through the court days. But here with the transcripts, we get this detail that I missed until we had the transcripts. And it's more important to me now than ever. I've always hinged on the Sag Harbor story. You guys are probably tired of me yelling Sag Harbor at people, but it's so important. A week before March 24th, around March 18th, you went to Sag Harbor with Mr. Majors, right? Oh, actually, wait, I missed one line. So I'm really supposed to start this section. Oh, wait, this is actually, we got to go through all the drinking stuff. So they go through all of this, like, hey, you know, you were taking pictures, you were in London with him, he's doing, he's
Loki?
dressed as Kang and sending you pictures, or dressed as Loki, whatever, he's sending you pictures.
Yeah.
So obviously you're not together the whole time. Thanks for that. And then, he's a well-known actor. We just discussed, well, you know, at that time we made the recording, you were living in a house with Mr. Majors in London, right? And you testified on direct that during that period, he was very busy, aka serious work to do, not spending time with you. Yes, that he was filming for Loki. Maybe it was season 2. I think he was filming season 2, and he was doing reshoots for Ant-Man. That's correct. And he was working on a Johnny Walker campaign. Well, I wouldn't be able to recall the exact date of that, blah, 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 blah. We went somewhere else when that was filmed. That wasn't in London. So she gets to go with him.
Yeah.
So stupid little details are now like sticking out to me because I'm thinking about this isolation claim. We went somewhere else when that was being filmed. That wasn't in London. So she gets to go on this trip. Mr. Majors was also in that period working on a film called Man in My Basement, right? No, he hadn't started working on that yet. Then they're talking about the recording. The recording involves him being upset with you drinking. Amongst other things, I believe. You decided during that conversation then when to begin the recording, right? Yes, that's right. And you also decided when to end the recording, right? Yes, that's right. And you also have the ability to edit a recording, right? I do have that ability, yes. Mr. Jabbari, both of your parents are lawyers, right? Correct. And your sister's also a lawyer, right? That's correct. Your parents have complained about your drinking, haven't they? Objection sustained. Drinking has been a constant source of tension in your relationship with Mr. Majors, right? No. So, just a no. Ever. Like, it was a source of tension, right? Objection, asked and answered. And the judge actually says, well, no, she said constant. Now she says it was a source of tension. So go ahead. She says, no, not to my understanding.
Yeah, that's like the go-to bag because, you know, you have a family of lawyers. If you can't recall something or if you don't understand it, then you're forgiven.
Not to my understanding, I don't recall. Or I don't recognize the shirt he's wearing in the picture of where I injured him. To your understanding, Mr. Majors was not happy with your drinking in the relationship, right? Objection is to form. Do you understand the question? Jabbari says, I can answer, but I don't know if I... And then the judge says, why don't you just rephrase it? And you and Mr. Majors had more than just one argument about your drinking, right? The one we heard in the recording. It wasn't really an argument. So how did everyone characterize... How did Cheyenne Roundtree characterize that recording?
It's chastised.
And then here we have Jabbari saying, oh, now that it's about my drinking, and you're pointing that out, well, it wasn't really an argument. So it was an argument and berating and yelling at, all until it's like, well, that conversation was a problem about you drinking, right? No, now it's not an argument. It wasn't about that.
How is the jury's BS detector not on 10, right?
Maybe the accent fooled them. I don't know. He would get upset with me and use drinking as an excuse for that, I believe. So anything he ever has a problem with is made up. And drinking is just a facade.
Yeah. That's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do with the whole drinking thing. Here, take that. See, guys, jury, listen. Every time they mention my drinking, it's them trying to
Something
project.
else.
Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. Don't believe them, jury. By drinking.
But Mr. Majors would tell you he was upset with you for your drinking, right? Amongst other things, yes. So you have to qualify it. You can't just say, yeah, he would say he was upset with me about that. Because we know what did she say he was upset about with Glastonbury?
Upset that I went. No, amongst
Signal.
other things, not just that you went.
Yeah, and what are the Family Feud options of what people do when they're at Glastonbury? What number one answer did she not get? She hit 3 buzzers because she didn't say alcohol, drinking, partying, drugs.
Yep.
All these things are the things that she leaves out consistently. In fact, a week before March 24th, around March 18th, 2023, you went to Sag Harbor with Mr. Majors, right? That's correct, yes. And Sag Harbor is on, like, Long Island, right? I believe you, yes. It's outside of Manhattan, correct? And maybe she doesn't actually know, like, what Long Island is. You drove there with Mr. Majors, right? He drove, and I sat in the passenger seat. He drove a rental car that he rented, right? Yes. And you got in an argument with Mr. Majors at Sag Harbor, is that right? I find the word argument difficult. Well, you were sure that something wasn't an argument 2 seconds ago. What? Like, it wasn't really an argument.
She wasn't really chasing him either.
And then here you have no idea. Well, I don't really know what an argument is. I find the word argument difficult. Well, you and Mr. Majors had a discussion that caused you to leave and go to the beach with a bottle of wine, right? Yes. Now you sound like a little baby because someone's like, oh, you went to have a drink after you had an argument. That kind of sounds reasonable, right? But because you don't want to say the word argument, now Priya gets to change her wording and now you sound worse. Because it's like, you had a discussion, just a discussion, and you need to take a whole bottle to go cope with a discussion.
Yeah.
So this kind of backfires on Jabbari if you think about the words being used.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, but the jury doesn't.
They're not paying attention.
Nope.
They don't care about Sag Harbor like I do.
Yep. There's 5 out of 6 of them don't care.
At least. So the 6 might not have been paying attention. So, well, you and Mr. Majors had a discussion that caused you to leave and go to the beach with a bottle of wine, right? Yes. And the reason the discussion you had is that Mr. Majors, you'd asked Mr. Majors about his schedule. Right? Yes. And and what did she just say? Oh, we didn't film the Johnny Walker campaign. That wasn't in London. We went on another trip somewhere else. She was hyped to answer that. But the discussion you're having here that you don't want to call an argument is that you asked Mr. Majors about his schedule. Right? Yes. And then what does she do because of that conversation about his schedule? Goes to the beach with a bottle of wine. And Mr. Majors said he wanted you to not plan. Objection.
So
plan your life around his schedule.
So
it's said. It's going to be hearsay.
Because it's Mr. Majors saying, and that's why they jumped in so quickly. Like, we know how this goes.
Yep.
But if Mr. Majors said it to you, that's not hearsay, is it?
I think it applies because it's going to prove the truth of the matter asserted against the person on trial. Since Jonathan Majors is actually the party on trial, it is confusing. But honestly, like most attorney, and they make this mistake constantly, but usually just clean it up by phrasing it in a way like, "Did you understand why?" Rather than saying, without saying what they said, what did you understand that to mean? So you just got to like play lawyer speak with it. So Mr. Majors said he wanted you to plan. Objection. Plan your life around his schedule, but he wanted you to work. So remember, she's getting in touch with Priya Chaudhry on January 13th. We're about to hear something about her February finance situation. She asked for money for $25,000 to pay taxes she owes in London, which means she blew, I don't know what London's tax rate is, but, self-employment in the United States, like if you make about $100K as a freelancer, about $25K would have to be paid to cover regular taxes plus self-employment, right? So if you are not paying your $25K tax burden, if that's all that's remaining for you to pay, you blew through that $100K or so of income and don't have it now when you're supposed to pay up. I don't know the UK's tax percentage rates though, but in the United States, for about $100K in income, it's about $25K-ish that you'd have to pay as a freelancer to that without doing proper expensing and write-offs and everything. We're going to see that. But so she's on March 18th, so upset about this conversation with Jonathan Majors. Is like, look, don't plan your life around my schedule. You need to work. I want you to work. She freaks out about that and takes a bottle of wine to the beach on March 18th, 2023. So the judge is like, well, you said and. It's going to be a compound question. Ask the question, single question, and then you'll object. So Chaudhry asks again. And Mr. Majors' response to you asking about his schedule is that you should not plan your life around his schedule, right? Perez objects for hearsay because it's talking about a response. And then the court says, I'll allow that because of the questions that were raised on direct. You could answer that. I don't know the exact conversation we're talking about. So it was a conversation that was so bad, or discussion. You grabbed a whole bottle about and then went to the beach to think about and ponder over.
She just drank so much she didn't remember, but she didn't drink.
But she's not going to say she didn't drink. You texted your friend Holly about, and I missed this detail too. I saw it but didn't think of the brevity. You're isolated. You don't tell your friends. You testify you can't tell your friends what's going on. But on March 18th, you text your friend Holly about this argument, right? So, yes. Would it refresh your recollection to see those texts? Yes, please. Your Honor, I'm handing both you and Ms. Jabbari for the people what's been marked as identification as Defense Exhibit 400. So it's only shown to the witness. All right, which page? So first page, do me a favor, look at this document, read it, put it down, see if it refreshes. Okay, it does refresh my memory, yes. And then Chaudhry says, yes, Your Honor. She wants to know if she can keep it. Just leave it there, just in case you need it again. Chaudhry, having reviewed what was marked as Defense Exhibit 400, does that refresh your recollection? Yes. Yes, on March 18th, when you were at Sag Harbor with Mr. Majors, you and he had an argument about his scheduling, correct? No. So we're getting a second no. You asked him for the dates he would be filming in Wales, correct? Yes. So clearly you're talking about scheduling. Mr. Majors said to you he doesn't know why you would need to know, and you should not plan your life around him, right? Now think about that wording. Now we're getting a little bit of hints as to how this was worded. He says to you, he doesn't know why you would need to know, and that you shouldn't plan your life around him. Why do you need to know that?
Controlling person. Jonathan Majors just said to you to plan
reverse
your
psychology
life.
Control.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing. He's doing 5D chess to control her because he knows if he says, why do you need to know that? She'll just suddenly, basically by like telekinesis, she'll always be with him. And that's what he really wants. That's like what really she's warping this into all being.
Mm-hmm.
Because any other normal person would be like, why are you up my ass right now? Why do you need to know all my business? Like, don't you have other stuff that you should be doing for yourself? Your own jobs, your own work, your own hobbies, your own friends? Like, damn, I just tried to fly your friends out here to get you out of my hair for a little bit. Like, 6 of them or whatever came out. And then now you're pretending when you're being confronted with this example on March 18th of 2023.
You know what would have been a great follow-up question after this one? About Mr. Major said that he doesn't know why you would need to know and you should not plan your life around him, right? Yes. Is this when he stops controlling you? No. Yeah, temporarily for like a week. That was the not control week. And then he got back to controlling me.
Or imagine if she was like, well, he only stopped controlling me because he started controlling Cleopatra.
Yeah, she probably would have an answer like that, wouldn't she?
Mm-hmm. I really think she would. And it would be so base that I think it would make her look real scorned. But at the same time, if Chaudhry asked that, it would just be objected to so quickly. She'd have to speed that type of question out.
Dude, I'm so
mad.
And
it would be
sorry.
No, me too. And these are some things that I'm looking at today that I didn't realize. So yesterday, I really just started looking at. I googled Glastonbury and Jabbari and tried to find anything tagged with her screen name and a Glastonbury tag. So that's when I started sending the group chat those pictures, and I'm like, okay, this is stupid. And I'm like, but there's a point behind all of this. It's not just because I'm just FBIing for the sake of doing it. There's things that conflict with her testimony. And I just went back to the transcripts, and some of it's even worse than it was when I read it the first time. These things like this, you're asking for the dates he'd be filming in Wales. We know that you have to exchange pictures, and you have a folder of him when he's separated from you. And you need to know his schedule. You're getting mad because he won't tell you the schedule and he's telling you to work. And we know you're not actually working because you're going to ask him for $25,000 for a tax bill because you blew all the income that you made as a freelancer previously and need to meet your tax burden. You're going to ask him for money to stay in a London hotel because you can't afford to stay somewhere. You're living with him. You're stuck to him like glue and wanting to be up his asshole, like any which way, all day, every day. And yet you get into this court where you think it's not going to be televised and your friends and family won't find out because you're already mad that it's being hinted to in the media by places like Insider that put out Priya Chaudhry's April 18th letter and the motion to dismiss.
TMZ, the video of her at the club at Lucy's.
Oh, yeah. No, the videos that you released. So we can tell, like, just by reading it, you can tell when she's upset that something got into the public. She doesn't mind being a domestic violence victim and tagging SFFNY, but God forbid a video of her out and partying
Revenge
is
partying?
out there.
Was it called revenge partying by people?
She called it strong empowerment women or whatever. Like, she testified. She has a testimony bit where I went out because I guess I just felt independent and it felt really nice to be around people that were so happy. Like, all these other times that I hung out with all my friends for 10 years and still continued to hang out with during and after the relationship. So, Sag Harbor, you left this conversation. Oh, and that you need to work in New York, correct? Because we know she needed to get this visa, and Priya Chaudhry, or Priya Satyani, Jonathan Majors was supposed to help with this. And instead, she took that opportunity to just yap in Priya's ear about, hey, is he talking to anybody else? See, what is he doing on set? He's not telling me what he's doing right now. He's always like this to me. Why do you guys think she's talking to Priya Satyani on January 13th if she's not actually pursuing her work visa?
I need some Cleopatra details.
Some Cleo clarity. Like, it's gotta be something. And then, yeah, so that's another good point, Juanita. It could be she wanted to sabotage more of his work. Like, I don't think if someone that I was dating was famous or was in a serious, maybe they work in like a manufacturing job that's like closed, there's intellectual property. I don't expect that I can just barge up in there. I don't think it's any different for a high profile movie set just because it's not dealing with like sensitive equipment. It's still sensitive intellectual property. You have an impression that you have to keep. There's things written into your contract about your behavior, which is why he got fired from half this stuff when this thing happened in March 25th. I wouldn't expect that I can just go run up in there. But the idea of doing so, either it's a really dumb mistake, which I should know better if I've been working on the set of Ant-Man myself too. I should know better. So it's probably not a dumb mistake. Or it's intentional, and I'm either being reckless and disregarding the consequences because I need to just have him talk to me and cuddle up and be under me. I'm clinging to him. Or, third possibility, I can go up there and I can make him look a little funny, and because he doesn't want to look bad on the set, he's going to have to leave the set and come talk to me privately. And I'm going to get what I want.
It's also fourth possibility. She's white, he's black, and he's like, Dr. Umar's making waves right now, and I just don't need this.
That was a funny clip. Well, the one where he was in church talking about the Jonathan Majors thing, that was a funny clip too. That was a good one. That was like right away too, right when the Chase video came out. He was one of the first ones to be like, I told you guys.
But that's a real thing, and I understand it completely. And also, look, when he first was busted, March 25, gets arrested, all this happens to him. It's like the community of anti-interracial was like taking it out on Jonathan. You see that he dated white, that's his problem. How could he do this and that? So
I think it might have been Erica earlier. Sorry if I'm getting the wrong person, but it's going to be like way up there in the chat. But mentioning like, well, it wouldn't have been any better if he like gave Princess Diana as an example, because do you know white people would go crazy if some other white girl was compared to Princess Diana? So on the flip side, it's like, why would you tell a white girl to be a black woman?
What's special about Princess Diana?
This white people will come out and say like, she's an icon. How could you compare yourself to her? I guess there's a lot of like, I don't know the direct comparisons, but I see a lot of people like get mad when someone tries to take Princess Diana's place. Like she's probably rightfully so, maybe. I don't know. She was a well-known princess, right? She was well loved. My mom cried when she died.
Oh, she's the one that died with in the car accident. That wasn't
yeah. Yeah, that's Princess Diana. So someone gave a really great example earlier where if it wasn't Coretta Scott King or Michelle Obama as the example, and the example was a white icon like Princess Diana, there would
Yeah.
be white people out here pulling their hair out at that comparison too, because why would you compare a regular girl to Princess Diana? Especially Grace Jabbari laughed. She testified about the funeral and her parents being at the Queen's funeral, and she was giggly through it all. So can you imagine, like, people that know about the royal family and like the royal family and stuff like that,
There's people who love the royal
hearing
family.
hearing someone laugh about their parents going to the Queen's funeral, but then also imagine if she was compared to Princess Diana. They would have framed Jonathan Majors for making that comparison too. So there's no win for him. But what you were saying was reminding me of that, like the lack of status, the lack of caliber. People are so hyper focused on this Coretta Scott King mention.
Mm.
But all he was doing was trying to give an example. And no matter what example he gave, even if it was a white person, if it was someone like Princess Diana, there would have been a problem too. There was no win. He's not allowed to have standards. And then people get mad no matter what Jonathan Majors says. And yeah, that was like what people called her, the princess of the people. I was really, really young, but I know
What
my
did she
mom
do?
cried.
She was the princess. Like she was selected to be the wife of the prince. But what did she do?
I
Like,
think
what was her
I think she did a
occupation?
lot of charity stuff.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what like it was before, like occupation wise, but I know like as her role as a princess, she did like you're expected to do like charity work as a princess. You have that type of stuff to fulfill. But I think she was like exceptional at doing that type of, you know, charisma, raising money for causes, helping, traveling around the world and being an ambassador for causes and whatever. So
That's nothing. Being an ambassador for a cause. Tell me about what she donated. Tell me about how she used the monarchy's resources to restore communities. Tell me about that.
this
Or-
is funny. She wanted to find out about whales, so talking about like his wanting to know his schedule in Sag Harbor, so she could fly out ahead of him to find the most Instagram-worthy spots for her subliminal posts. Like, yeah, because it's like the win, right? You get to show your friends group, hey, I'm rich and traveling and successful and great too. But you also get to show people who know who Jonathan Majors is that you're where he is currently. And I didn't really know that that was a thing that people would sleuth out. But I saw it a lot with like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and then Johnny Depp and other women that he dated, where people were like recognizing some person posted a picture of a beach sunset that had to be from this exact coastline that he was staying at.
Ooh.
So, and I didn't know because I don't really like follow stuff like that to understand it. But seeing how other people can recognize that, it makes you think that the person taking the picture understands that those things will be recognized. That this location will be recognized because the people who follow this celebrity will know where that celebrity is, and they'll know that I'm the one there with them. So even though I'm not coming out and saying like, hey, I'm with this person, I'm chosen, the people who know will recognize it. So something I didn't know until I knew. And then I think this is about Princess Diana, but chill, you had to be there. No, aren't you like supposed to know a little bit about royalty because you're Canadian? Isn't that like part of your political structure?
there's a lot of that. There's like the queen and the crown when you're doing your like official documents. It's mentioned there. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't really like understand because all I know is like it's kind of like symbolic as a political
Man,
force, but then it doesn't seem like it at all. It seems like it's actually really prominent in a lot of places and influential. In America, we hear it's like a symbolic monarchy, and that it's not really, at least for England.
tax money goes to them. That's what's symbol.
Yeah, so that's okay. That's important. That's important. That's probably the most important thing. Speaking of tax money, so that you need to work in New York, correct? Because she needs that work visa. And you left this conversation with a bottle of wine and went to the beach, right? We were drinking the wine and we didn't want to waste it. We were drinking the wine. We didn't want to waste it. That sounds really consistent with what alcoholics say. So they said we could take it with us. So we took it with us with some food. She always loves to mention how much food she ate when she was drinking. We also didn't eat, but she's saying the food's there. But you were at the beach alone when you were writing those texts, right? I left an angry version of him to be alone. Objection, non-responsive. The judge says, no, that's responsive. You can answer the question. Or do you want to withdraw the question? You were alone when you wrote these text messages, right? That's correct, yes. And I'm sorry to cut you off. This is a great time to cut someone off, judge. But just so on redirect, which color is Mr. Jabbari and which color text is Mr. Majors? Would you like me to say, I'm gray, you're gray? Yes. Okay, go ahead. So Jabbari's gray. These are text messages with Holly, your friend, correct? So the judge is like, well, which person texting is Mr. Majors? And Chaudhry has to say, these are texts with Holly. So, yes. And then the judge goes, about Mr. Majors? And then, yes. So the judge is just interjecting and messing up all the details. And while you're at the beach with the bottle of wine, Mr. Majors went back to work on his poetry, right? That's what he said, yes.
Ooh, that's
because
what
he had a deadline,
Like,
right?
I'm not about to give you that. This is a sophisticated man who does poetry? Hell no. That's what he says, yes. He said he does poetry, yeah.
And also just the idea, like, he's going to go back and be productive after just telling you to stop worrying about my work schedule and do some work of your own. You're also not going to want to concede, like, after we just go out and drink and we're going to be on Long Island, we're going to be partying in Sag Harbor. He actually wants to focus on work. You don't want to concede that either, that he has serious moments where he's still productive in what would ordinarily to you just be party time. I think that's part of it too. Because she's like, that's what he said, as if, well, he wasn't really going to work. Specifically on poetry is another layer. But work in general, he said he was going to work, but...
I will not sit here in this courtroom and verify that this man partakes in productive work. Nope.
Yeah.
Poetry?
Yeah, no.
Poetry is not done by idiots.
And that's like really shitty to come from a person who's in the world of arts, right? To like even snub something like poetry. That's what he said he was going to work on. You're in the art world. You should know that that's not just a craft, but it's work. It's a career. It's
And
work.
The jury were like, yeah, he did say he's going to poetry, but doesn't mean he did. Yeah. Fucking
people that do poetry are abusive. That's probably what they got out of it. Didn't Edgar Allan Poe drink a lot? It was probably Jonathan Majors that was the drunk, because Jabbari says, we're going to take some food and we're both going to drink this wine. So they probably take creative licensing.
He probably is writing a rap. That's what it stands for.
Oh.
Requires attempting poetry.
I saw some of his poetry. I think it was from like December or January, and it was dark, and it mentioned the idea of like, I think, getting away from someone. One of them did. And I was like, oh, I wonder if this is like really timely. I feel like it was December that it was published, so it was probably written in like October. I don't know. I gotta verify that because I'm just pulling the date out of memory. But when I read it, I was like, this could be him referencing this relationship for sure.
We're a bad combination because we ramble. We like the percentage of times we talk about what's on screen.
Yeah, that's
0.
It's fine. I think it's important though, because there might be people out there in the chat that remember the poems that I don't know 100%, but they could have the details.
Hazel,
I mean, I'm all for... Chill, you should read about Princess Diana. And I'm American. She was like a different royal. Her son Harry is just like her. It's so much to learn. I feel like if you don't know it... I feel like if you don't know it already...
She died.
Like, there's probably a lot to catch on.
She was killed. She died. It looked like an accident, but she... There it is. And she had kids. She had the royal children. I know that much. I don't care after that. Princess Diana, right? That's the one who died.
Yeah.
I know everything I need to know about her. I'm good.
And then with the poems, I think I found them in an interview that he did, and they had linked to it because the interviewer was like, and he's also a poet, and you can read some of his poetry here, and they like shouted out the publisher and put the link to it. I don't remember the link offhand. I don't know if I have it saved anywhere. That was honestly back in like April when I first heard this case. I was like, this strangulation charge seems weird. I don't really know if this is gravy. So I wasn't really like compiling everything back then. But yeah, in this point of the transcript, because I think this is the end of it, it's like, we're going to get through this text message stuff. This is the last page for the Sag Harbor. So, Miss Jabbari, you got into the car that Mr. Majors rented. And at that point, you told Mr. Majors you wanted to go back to New York City, right? I don't recall that. Miss Jabbari, you got into the car that Mr. Majors rented and tried to drive back to New York City, right? I don't remember that at all. Do you remember being too drunk to operate the car? No. You don't remember, you don't recall, but you know you weren't. We get a straight no for that. When you went to Bellevue on March 25th of this year, and then they're going to get into talking about Bellevue. And then you told the doctors there that you had 5 to 6 glasses of wine, correct? I don't remember the number I told them. So they're going to get into the alcohol. We don't need to go into that here. Just know that's where the Sag Harbor stuff transitions into. And then the very last thing that I think ties into this isolation story. Is it this one? 502. Okay, yeah. So Mr. Majors, when you met Mr. Jabbari, when you met Mr. Majors in the summer of 2021, when you were on the set of Ant-Man, you were living with roommates, correct? Objection, relevant, sustained. The point is, she wasn't paying for her own place by herself. She wasn't independent. She was splitting bills with someone else. Oh. No shame in doing that, but it's going to become relevant for the sake of this case. The summer of 22, you lived in a house with Mr. Majors in London that you described as nicer than any house you've been in, correct? Yes. And you didn't pay anything to live there, correct? I did not, no. And through your relationship, Mr. Majors took you on a trip to Hawaii for your birthday. Is that right? He did, yes. And he took you on a trip to Atlanta, correct? He was living in Atlanta. And he paid for you to come to visit him? He did, yes. And to Los Angeles? Yes. And to Texas? Yes. And he flew you back and forth from London to New York, right? Back and forth, more than once. Objection, relevance judge, overruled. Is that right? Yes. And he flew you first class, correct? Yes, at times. And in fact, you would send him photos of yourself drinking champagne on the flights, right? Yes. And when you were with Mr. Majors, he paid for everything, and that's expensive. You buy that stuff on a flight. And when you were with Mr. Majors, he paid for everything, correct? I don't know about everything, but most things, yes. Very generous. And last year, around this time, for your 30th birthday, he flew 7 of your friends from London to New York, correct? 7 of her Glastonbury friends. That's correct. And he flew them first class. So if you look right here, if you go back to the beginning of this video, sure doesn't look like cheap old economy seats. That's the plane right there. And Grace Jabbari's on it, so it's like she was with them on the flight to come over in December for her birthday. When was the Mariah Carey concert? Well, she might have had more than one night of concert. Maybe if it was Madison Square Garden, it says December 13th, 2022 was one date. So I don't know if that was her only New York City date, but there's a ballpark there for you. So it seems like on whatever day they end up flying over, Grace Jabbari was in London to fly with her London friends over to this December 13th Mariah Carey concert.
I'm into the Mariah-ness of all of this.
I know, it's like good music. It's a good little compilation video. I wish I had like videos like this in my life. I don't want to play a lot of it because I know Mariah Carey's people will.
Can you hit the note?
No, I don't even know that song, honestly.
Emotions.
Whatever. I don't know lyrics unless they're on a screen at karaoke. Except some songs I just know all the words to and don't know why or how. And then, yes, this is obviously multiple days that they're here. He pays for 7 of them to come out. They're obviously doing many festivities.
Look at this place. Like, it's just boom, 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 boom. Vertical living. And that's nasty. That's so...
Well, I think... So I realized today in the 911 recording, because I'm working with Blabette to, compile... We want like a...
Why are you
captions that
so
are
hard?
full.
Why?
I don't know, because I just need to know the answers. Yeah, I know. But we put the captions for it, and then I'm annotating at the end, like bringing in the context. I think a lot of people hear that 911 call in the general public and don't understand that 911 call was not made the instant that the incident happened. They don't understand that this is her passing out or falling asleep or pretending to be knocked out like 7-8 hours after everything supposedly happens. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to annotate with the context surrounding it. So we're working on that. But I realized listening to it, he's like, yeah, above the Whole Foods. I think that's what he says. So you're talking about vertical in New York? It seems like, I think they're building, I'm sure we could look it up on Google Street Maps. There's a Whole Foods on the bottom floor. And their penthouse apartments all the way at the top of that building. So, as he says right above too. That.
But not every corner has one. This is amazing.
Oh, it's a lot. It's so much like population per square foot, like capita per square foot or square mile rather, is
You're
just like insane with
no,
New York.
No,
I know we're not. Tokyo's number one, not like I would say somewhere in like Hong Kong would be insane.
No, I think it's
but
Tokyo and Karachi.
Tokyo.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, let's talk about that. First class tickets for 7 people is wild. And then you're paying, I mean, I don't know how much of the amenities were paid for, but I'm sure like the dinners, the limousine, the concert tickets, you know, obviously if you want to go out and do your own thing, you're probably paying for yourself, right?
She
But if
says
someone's
business
flying,
class. No, look, she lies. She says business class.
some of them, sometime. So this is talking about, that's correct. And he flew them first. Oh, and she corrects him. Oh, good call, chill. So, and he flew them first class, correct? Business class. Business class? So Priya is already a little confused. I don't know. What do you guys think of... Let's go freeze frame that.
That looks
They have like
good.
cubicles.
Mm-hmm. A lot of space.
I don't know. I'm sure it's not a janky airline either way. I don't know.
Can you
But Priya obviously seems confused.
Can you tell by how far apart the windows are if it's first or second class or business? Is there like a pattern?
I don't know.
I'm not.
Are the windows falling off of this plane or are they staying intact?
Yeah, this looks like a. This looks good.
Oh, because if we can catch that little bit right before that.
Oh, right before.
I don't like StreamYard's little scrub. There's no really scrub option to fine tune.
Oh,
she's
so
like,
those
it looks.
Drinks are from business class with the little glasses. Come on,
I want a screwdriver.
Yeah, this is first class to me.
And look how beaming she is. She's beaming that she has all of her friends on this expensive flight.
That's the first class smile. Come on.
Yeah, let's open a dentist shop and call it that. So, but Priya seems like business class. Yes. And he put them all in a hotel on the Lower East Side for several days, correct? He did, yes. In fact...
What if she asked business class? She looks over at Jonathan, and Jonathan goes like no. And then she's just like, all right, fine, whatever. Like, what if there was more performance to it? You know, we don't know that. We just see words on the text. She could have said business class, and she could have been looking at Jonathan. And then he was like...
Yeah, and then you got to think to, like, Danny describing that Priya would stand there and ask a question and then, like, look there like a mom waiting for their child to answer honestly. So, it'd be great if, like, we can get, like, Danny, do you remember this business class question? Although, wait a minute. This was the day Jimmy was in court. So, I'll send Jimmy an email and be like, I know this is a random question, but do you remember this 2 lines right here when they say business class? No. Yes. And then I'll see if he remembers anything significant standing out. Because this was day 7. So Danny wasn't there. But she bites in. Priya goes right back into it and says, well, he put them all in a hotel on the Lower East Side for several days, right? So, I mean, that's like on the cheap side. The cheapest you'll be able to find is probably, especially that time of year, December in New York City.
Shit.
Like, I'd be surprised if you found anything below $350 a night for a single nasty ass bedroom.
And he would come to have dinner with us. Look, he pays for lunches and dinners. You're just a friend of somebody, and that person's friend is paying for you to have
several days.
Week. You don't have to worry about anything for a week and just enjoy this city and do these events. What a beautiful
So Jabbari, I want you to read this though. Tell me if this is a omission answer. So you're saying, and he did in fact pay for several days of lunches and dinners, correct? And you know Priya Chaudhry looks at receipts. Half of her information in this case comes from receipts. That's how she knew to go subpoena the Lucy's footage, because she saw the credit card stuff. That's how she knew that was where a point of interest of that night, because it doesn't match the route that they drove on, right? It's separate. But the credit card charges were Hansel and Gretel cookie crumb. So then she says, and he paid for several days of lunches and dinners. So when you say lunches, it's probably because the credit card bills are coming in before 7 p.m., right? It's earlier. And then she says, when he would come to dinner with us, he would pay for dinner, yes. Now that's not an answer where you're saying, no, he didn't pay for lunches, but it would imply to the jury as if you're saying he would only pay for some dinners if he was there with us. But at the same time, this answer could also mean, yeah, he did pay for everything you just said, but I'm going to like kind of reframe it to walk it away from what you're getting at. Yeah. By saying when he would come, it's like a partial yes, but it's not a no.
I wouldn't, it makes you want to say that means he doesn't pay for the lunches. It just makes it seem like he pays when he comes. But you never said he doesn't pay when he's not there.
It's sneaky. So, like, honestly, I can't make a conclusion one way or the other based on that. My conclusion is my inference I'm drawing from knowing that Priya bases her questions on the things that she's seen receipts for. We know that about the number of drinks she wanted to know about with Karasu on the 24th. She also is going to reference the receipt. She knows that the London flight on March 25th or 26th that Jabbari flies out with, she knows that was on Jonathan Major's card. She knows that the car she hired to take her to the airport was on Jonathan Major's card. She bases these questions off what she's seeing in the transactions, the statement. So when I see this, I kind of feel like that's probably where Priya's getting the idea of lunches being paid for. And then we're getting a half yes, but not a no from Jabbari. And he sent you and your friends to a Mariah Carey concert. Correct? Correct. And he paid for your birthday outfit, which was approximately $8,000. Objection sustained.
Why is that an objection, though? I don't get it. Why would that be a problem? He paid for lunch, sure. He paid for your birthday outfit, which cost this much. Sure, why not?
It seems like, so she's going to be able to re-ask it, but leave the dollar amount out. So it seems like the dollar amount isn't allowed to come in.
Well, here they heard her say 8,000. So.
Yeah. And Mr. Majors paid for your birthday outfit, correct? Yes. And when you were living with him in that penthouse apartment, you saw the apartment listing before you moved in, correct? I saw videos, and it's another partial yes. I saw videos of the apartment, yes. And you knew how much the rent of that apartment was, right? Objection to relevance, sustained. You didn't pay to live in that apartment, correct? That's correct, yes. Honestly, that's enough, too. You saw how much the rent was, right? And even if I don't hear the answer, I'm going to... She's saying penthouse that you moved in. You see the listing. You knew how much the rent was. I'm going to sit there and say, must have been a lot. Like, I'm not stupid. I live in New York, and you're talking about this area of penthouses. But it's objected to. It's sustained. You didn't pay to live there, correct? That's correct, yes. Ms. Jabbari, as of October 2022, you referred to yourself as Mrs. Majors, correct? What happened in October? This is where we get the men's health journalists and go watch Danny and Pam break this down. I'm very much single. October 2022. And then we have Priya pointing out, you referred to yourself as Mrs. Majors, correct? A specific date. So there's got to be a text message or something of significance there. Galloway, objection as to relevance. The court, well, it was brought out on direct about them getting married, so you can ask that question. Chaudhry says, is that right? I didn't refer to myself solely as Mrs. Majors, no. So there's another partial yes.
You did. Let's just say that you did it. I also went by Grace, but yeah, there was Mr. Majors. Sometimes I call myself Stephanie nowadays.
So, Sai, what does she do? Oh, yeah, he was always paying regardless. So Daisy says he was always paying regardless, even when he's not there, because she's using his card. Exactly. That's why it always kills me when she gave this testimony, like, I would prepare meals and stuff by ordering food with his card. Like, it doesn't add up. You weren't doing anything. So then she says, I didn't refer to myself solely as Miss Majors, no. And then the judge says, what was the answer? Was it solely? And then Perez jumps in, solely. And Chaudhry says, did you ever refer to yourself as Mrs. Majors? He used to call me Mrs. Majors in messages, and then I would, sometimes use it as well. Although I was quite adamant that I wanted to keep my surname if we were ever to get married. What, do you guys buy this?
Women on that jury were supposed to go, that's right, sister. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the way Jabbari's trying to virtue signal in her daily Instagram stories, she's virtue signaling out to I don't know, every other time she posts something, it's some screenshot about there's a massacre going on right now in Gaza and people are talking about something else, which is great. I get it. But we don't need you to post we don't need you to post 3 other people talking about it to your story every day. What type of audience are you trying to rebuild your association with now?
What if she just cares about what's happening in Gaza? I care about what's happening in Gaza all the time. I post about it. That's unrelated to, not her whole life isn't this criminal case. You deserve to be blocked because you look at everything that she's into. You're looking at all the videos she's tagged in, her friend.
Okay, so that I went back and found, but the stuff I'm talking about, her stories, I've only seen a few days, but it just happens to be that every day she has a story live, and she's screenshotting someone else's take on something, and then just reposting it. Like, it's not even her own thoughts or her own words. She's just taking someone else's statement and then, like, putting it up.
Is that different
to signal
than
it
how
to
she's
her
supposed-
audience?
So that's different than making your own story and being like, "Hey, I'm walking dogs today." Like that's so she's not doing any live, in-person type things.
No, it's just virtue signaling off someone else's opinion to probably appeal to a certain audience of people without actually having it's pat on the backtivism, right? It's, I'm looking like I support a cause without actually needing to actively support any cause by any significant means.
To her 10,000 followers.
Something like that. Oh, yeah, she totally uses faux moi. She's signaling to those people. That is a good description of people. I don't really understand exactly what faux moi is. But every time I see something that's like screenshotted from that Reddit community, it's always something that is like the same way that
Is that French for
Grace
me too?
Jabbari. Yeah. Well, maybe. Does faux mean too?
Yeah, I think so. Like me as well. Moi, I know moi.
Yeah, it's a Reddit. I thought faux was like
It
not
says fake me. It
really.
literally means fake me. I think. What?
But yeah, it's like a Reddit sub, and it's like it's always like salacious, juicy, like sometimes accusatory stories, but not always like something that's like someone did so and so, something happened. It's not always a salacious accusation that someone did something criminal like abuse or violence, but a lot of the times that it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like as soon as something is put in there, journalists get their stories from here. Certain journalists, I shouldn't say journalists, certain journalists of a certain caliber
Cheyenne White
or
Tree?
lack of caliber. Yeah. It's one of those. That's why okay, yeah, it used to be Dumois. That's actually what I remember seeing it be, and that is me too, which is why I agreed with you so quickly. So, but yeah. And the blogger threatened them legally. Wow. Oh, because there's a blogger named Dumois. Got it. But yeah, so like that's like the type of audience I feel like she's trying to virtue signal to with her like 24/7 Instagram story, 24-hour Instagram stories.
But if she posts things on Instagram now,
see, I don't know because I didn't care. This is now that I'm seeing this. I don't know what she used to do. So I don't know if she used to do this.
Has she stopped doing the selfies? Has she stopped her pattern of posting? Or is this more so what we see? She just made her profile public nowadays. We don't know.
Well, she made it public, then she made it private, then she made it public, and then she made it right around the time of the GMA interview. Everyone said that's when she had made it private again, because she made it public around her birthday to make this big shout out to the victims, the DV nonprofit that helped her. So she made this post about that. She unprivated to make this post.
And her comments are blocked. Every post.
That doesn't surprise me. Were you going to comment?
I was going to read, but not comment.
Yeah, so while you're lurking that, let us know if you need me to share anything interesting that you see.
Oh, don't worry.
But she's iterating here that she doesn't solely refer to herself as Mrs. Majors, and that it was him that would call her Mrs. Majors, and she would just kind of like use it sometimes. Although I was quite adamant that I wanted to keep my surname if we were ever to get married.
That was true? A shot at the Megan Good when he calls her the Mrs. And they all said, "Are they?"
Oh, that interview was absolutely a shot.
So this right here was her going, I got that too, Megan. Megan, I know you're sitting right there. Don't think you're the only one who we called the Mrs. That was me also. Okay.
Yep. Boom. And there were a lot of people like that. Like I know I recognize their like YouTube names that I saw pointing that out on when I think I was in the car I was driving and it was Dramax stream, but a lot of people were pointing that out. Like they did that on purpose because of the Jabbari Mrs. Majors thing. So people caught that, and this is a good example right here of when Grace Jabbari says, "Oh, this March 25th thing has traumatized me. It's just a continuation of the abuse I was subjected to. all this stuff because now I'm very private and I have to tell my friends and family all this stuff. No, you're worried about certain things like this, where you look like the one that was building your whole life around someone else who was already pushing you back and creating distance and separating himself from you and trying to set standards and kind of criteria for you to meet to bring this commitment further. You want to present this as some type of abusive package thing that ruined your life to everyone else. But when you know the details, you were the one that was already planning your life around him before you were even like a full, like, it was like a year into the relationship. And you want to say that you were already calling yourself Mrs. Majors. Oh no, it was him, not me. But that's the type of little detail that she doesn't want her family to know, her friends to know. And then Chaudhry switches a little bit. She says, isn't it true that on January 14th, you told Mr. Majors that he was the only man you would change your name for and refer to yourself as Mrs. Majors?
That is a yes.
And
or
I
no
know that
question.
has to be a text. I would have to know the context, but it upset him a lot when I said I wanted to keep my name, and it would appease his mood if I said I would take his name significantly. But you said everything was good. In fact, you text Priya Satyani on January 13th. And you said, December and January are so great. I'm in New York. It's great. I flew back over to New York with my friends before December 13th, which means we weren't together with each other physically, at least. Whenever we flew over there, before the Mariah Carey concert. Everything was great then. It was really loving and great. But January 13th, you text Priya Satyani, and on January 14th, seems like you text someone, Mr. Majors, that he was the only man you'd change your name for. And then again referred to yourself as Mrs. Majors. I would have to know the context, but it upset him a lot when I said I wanted to keep my name, and I would do it to appease his mood. Isn't it true that you did say that Mr. Majors was the only man you would change your name for, and then call yourself Mrs. Majors? So Chaudhry is pressing on it. Yes, potentially.
Oh boy. It's in a text message, isn't it?
I don't think they're going to bring it in, but you get what I'm saying. Chaudhry is, a lot of the questions that Chaudhry asks are based on receipts or something documented.
So when she when she fights it the first time, and then you have to ask her again, and okay, yes, potentially. If I'm a jury, I'm like, oh, look at this liar go. Look at the avoid, and then look at the, okay, finally, partially admitting. What a liar. What a non-credible person. Everything I heard earlier about what happened in the car and all that nonsense cannot be believed anymore. If I'm logically, and then plus the driver says she did it.
Hold on, I gotta highlight because Tracker says Gracie is such a liar. We gotta say Gracie once in a while. We gotta make sure we remember the name that, her friends all use for her. They do actually have a second Grace.
Didn't Tracker leave the stream and then come back? That's how long we've been on for it?
Hello, wait. Yeah, what? You must be flying direct. Oh, are you flying can you tell us if this clip is first class or business class? You're the experienced one in here. Yeah. And then the universe says JM needs an award for lasting this long. This girl is exhausting. Yeah, and can you imagine this is 3 days of testimony? I guess kind of 4 if you consider her 20-minute redirect, and we're all done with her.
I think the universe means the relationship, lasting in this relationship for a year and a half. And the day he breaks up with her was the day that, he had to go to prison or jail, I should say. Such bullshit.
The only way, what do they say when you're in a life of crime? The only way out of this life is jail or death, prison or death.
He was done with her. He had the whole full experience, breaks up with her. That's it. I'm done with it. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to run away. I'm going to do everything right. Sleep in a hotel. Come back. I see her here. Even though she was awake and texting a few minutes before you were at the door.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, hey, 911, look, I feel fairly confident. I've got proof, breakup text and everything, so we're good. Go check her out. He gets arrested by the cops. DA puts charges on him. Oh my God. This really was cops, right? Cops got there and decided, we're going to screw this.
And that's why it's weird is we don't have body cam footage showing him actually being cuffed and arrested, which is usually the key part of the footage.
Yeah.
Right? Unless they thought maybe that would be prejudicial to show him in handcuffs. But to me at that point, it's kind of I guess maybe it's possible the defense fought on that part.
I guess so. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because maybe it would just like look bad, like how they don't want like someone that's sitting in jail waiting for trial. They don't want them to show up in their orange jumpsuit in front of a jury. They want to dress them up so they're not, because that impression can go a long way. That
Yes.
association of seeing someone in like a jumpsuit and shackles or whatever.
What
So
if there
maybe
was like a
maybe it was
deal?
the defense that didn't want to show it,
If
but
I'm the defense, I'm saying, fine, you guys show the moment he was arrested, but we also need the audio too of the entire body camera. Then
either that or the prosecution didn't want it even without audio because they didn't have to handcuff him to take him away. He just went with them,
who knows?
which would look bad for them, in my opinion. You don't ever want to, like, as a prosecutor, it only looks good for you if someone, like, resists arrest, right?
Oh, well, if the cops are, I'm sure, if they want to make it look like it, they'll say, stop resisting, down. Oh,
But we
look, the
wouldn't
cop said
hear
it's
that
live.
on the audio.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then let's see. Oh, wait, so Tracker says it was a very short flight from Mexico City to Puerto Vallarta. Vallarta? Oh, God. I only ever read things. I never hear things pronounced out loud. So then I have to get on this stream and say things, and I know it's probably wrong.
Look at the
But Puerto
commitment of your
Vallarta?
subscribers. They come here and they in between flights, they can't go a minute without listening to you live.
No, but I think that's like the compelling part of this case is it's kind of like you just want it to make sense and then you have to look at it because like you want it to make sense. You want to find something to figure out how this went to trial. Why this trial ended up even coming out with two guilty convictions, two guilty counts. Like, I think the interest in this is not me. I think this is like every day there's something new that makes Grace Jabbari, in my opinion, more obvious of a liar and a storyteller that told a tall tale and just hoped since it wasn't televised. Oh no, is my graphics card freaking out? Hold on, I might have to shut the stream down. I think I knocked my graphics card out of my PC. So I'll be back.
The video Chillmonger did with the choke symbol from the police to Grace made it look like the cops were conscious of the body camera and trying to hide it. Yeah, we are truth seekers. You know what's up more than me. Yo, Juanita Dark, you know what's up because you're over here on these live streams. And then Denise Oates writes that Princess Diana was making the buried landmine in Africa that were injuring local people, calling out what was going on. And this was after her divorce and putting a camera on the plight of it people. Oh, okay, that's cool. That's positive. So it's got to do with after her divorce. I still don't care. I still don't want to glorify somebody of this oppressive family, even if she left the family. It's just not worth my. It's not worth any of us or beneficial of any of us. Cops do that a lot, says Juanita. Yeah. The subject of this video, of this live stream, is Grace Jabbari fooled her friends, jury, Glastonbury photos, and the NYC trip Jonathan Majors paid for. That's what happened. They believed it. The jury decided, and some of that has to do with what they know. People who look like Grace and sound like Grace are worthy of, and what they've been conditioned to believe what Jonathan Majors appearing people are of. They didn't just wake up with these thoughts. These guys in the jury, some of them were younger, but a lot of them were older, have lived through years of the 6 p.m. news, okay? Knowing what criminals, the skin tone that is common with them, and the skin tone that is consistent with, I don't know, the people who are on the news for other stories. There's movies which depict Jonathan Majors in the roles that he's often offered are, men who are holding guns and grilling each other and shooting and unhappiness. While if you think about the roles that Tom Hanks has been playing for like Mr. Rogers, no, that sets the foundation for court cases like this. The darker you are, the guiltier you are, the wronger you are, the less benefit of the doubt you get. The lighter you are, or the more British you appear, the closer you resemble somebody of the Caucasian ethnicity, like Kat. People like Kat. I wouldn't say this when she was here, but her type of people, that woman, bro. I'm glad she's gone. 2 hours and 58 minutes. I'm playing. I'm stopping being stupid. There's just something that the jury. There's a handicap that the jury, that the defense attorney had. the jury and what they believed. 5 out of 6 of them, it was not a jury of his peers. They deselected. Who did they deselect? That guy who was college educated and he wouldn't understand the instructions. Danny, if you're here, correct me, but you're not here. This is when the court case was won. Let's read some more. Wonder Woman says, very true. Wonder Woman. My voice crack. Chill in his T'Challa voice. I don't care. Yeah, I don't really care about that monarchy. The one I care about is T'Challa. They didn't conquer anybody. She probably has a few, but not many in my opinion. I wish Jonathan Majors' team put out an itemized bill of all the purchases he made for her. Yeah, we kind of got that though during that night. $800 I think she spent at the club on getting drinks for all of her friends, even though she was afraid of him. Amazing that was said to be believed. Imagine her friends believing her and then slowly start coming to realizations. She's a real person, right? She's gonna have to deal with this. People not believing her. Her being the psycho who ran after Jonathan from like sidewalk to sidewalk. Daisy Bull. She didn't have friends. She has associates, and they're there for the good times. That's a personal shot. They would have been actually, one of those friends that we saw in some of those videos, those 7 friends who made it from London to New York. I remember seeing him in court. He was like a friend accompanying her as they were leaving the courtroom. They would have been in court, but they had to ship people in. Miss Lady says they need to. I think they did have an itemized bill. And then Miss Lady says, yes, but they should have put that bill on the record, since she kept saying he was controlling. If there's one thing we could rule out after the reading we just did, this whole he controlled me stuff is false. That's the way that ADA Kelly Galloway began her closing. This is about 4 words: abuse, control, violence. I just heard all the times that he would be away from her. I just heard about how he was saying, don't plan your life and schedule your life around me. That is the opposite of control. That encourages free will. But jury decided he was guilty of reckless assault and harassment. Priya mentioned some of them. Oh, the itemized bill? Yeah. I mean a bill from the entire relationship and call it context, since we did that for the first several days of the trial. Star Wars and Tony Blair taught me not to trust an English accent except my husband's. The poster child for stage 5 clinger girlfriends with codependency and lying issues. Running after him for 5 blocks. Assist to the courthouse. It's okay, first of all, 5 blocks. Was it 5 blocks? I know where it starts. He gets out of the car. They walk to the sidewalk. Let's call that block number 1. And then when they start running, they're running straight. And then when she crosses the street to almost get hit by the car, because she's on London mindset and she's not thinking about it, that's when she goes to another block. And then I would say...
Sorry, my graphics card conked out, guys.
Is that the stream?
You can hear me, though?
We hear you.
Okay, yeah. So my graphics card, so with traveling, I think maybe it kind of got bumped on the road and I gotta unscrew my tower and put it back in better. I think it's my graphics card because my PC screen is just a bunch of lines of pretty colors right now. So, but I think the only thing that we missed was the $20K tax payment request. But sorry, I interrupted you, Chill. Thanks for holding it down.
Yep.
I don't think, can I even I can't even reframe this on a phone. It doesn't let me move you to... I could put you as a solo layout, but...
that's terrible.
But yeah, I think the ending thing, the 2 last parts of testimony I wanted to talk about were Priya Chaudhry saying, hey, didn't you ask him for $20K for a tax bill you have in the UK? She's like, well, I don't know. And then asking for money for a hotel stay in February in London. And then she revisits a text or a description from Grace Jabbari, where Grace Jabbari calls Jonathan Majors the perfect man in like March of 2023. So she asked a bunch of questions there, like, "Oh, why was he the perfect man?" And she tries to dance around it and say things like, "Well, I loved him at that point, regardless of everything." Those are the last like three things I had that tied this transcript into the idea that she was not isolated.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then can I still pop? Okay, cool. So I can still do this on mobile. So Denise says, and hey Denise, it's not like she's aware of the world activity, but I want you guys to think I'm woke, so I'm grabbing the most like billboards. Yeah, that's how I look at it too. But chill, I interrupted you.
I was just talking about white people and how they need to be taken, like, watched over and stuff, you know?
Yeah, and how we need to make sure our graphics cards are good. Hold on, let's highlight this. I'll highlight this detail any chance I get. So Tracker says, running after him for 5 blocks in heels, crossing traffic in the winter.
March
Okay, and
25th.
some of those pictures that I found from like November 2022 when she's hanging out with her friends in London, nothing to do with Jonathan Majors. She's not isolated or controlled. She's wearing those like leather skin printy type pants again. Those pants that I always love to see her run in.
Mm.
And then we need a Google Translate for Grace Jabbari and how she defines the English language. Yeah, like what is an argument? What is isolation?
I wonder, did Jonathan pay the credit card bills, or did he pledge to pay for the credit card bills?
Oh my god. Listen, don't make the one or two like Amber Heard supporters come at me because I appreciate their support for Jonathan Majors, regardless if I disagree with them very strongly on another case. And then let's see. So Miss Lady says, I mean a bill from the entire relationship and call it context, since we did that for the first several days of the trial. Yeah, and I noticed one part of the instruction was like, if you believe it, then you can take what you're hearing in. So like you're not telling people not to consider this. And then let's see. She doesn't have friends, she has associates, and they are there for the good times. That's possible too. I mean, I think it's possible a lot of people like, you know, if they only hang out with her in a group of like 6+ people, you don't really get to see people's one-on-one kind of behavior, right? It's a little bit different. Does she even have real friends? The one girl she used to be, it looks like really close with, back from like 2014 to 2016. And then it seems like since that point they kind of got together for holidays, big group gatherings, and the Glastonbury Festival. So, but you guys have a lot. So sorry I don't have the transcripts like up on. I wouldn't know how to share them on the screen. Although my computer screen is suddenly now showing itself, but I'm not even going to try to touch it. I think I got to just disconnect my tower and jam that graphics card back in. The judge told them not to speculate on the redacted parts of the text messages, which is dumb. I agree. Um, but Chill, do you have any last thoughts on what you think isolation means?
It means whatever she wants it to mean when she wants it to mean it, and it helped because the people of Manhattan won their case.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the appeal, guys. I don't have an update on the appeal. The New York courts are really slow and even posting updates. Appeals take a really long time. So just because you think sentencing is coming up and you haven't heard, you don't see a document like dropping from the sky with all the appellate arguments that Priya and Seth plan to make, doesn't mean that they're not working and filing documents related to the appeal.
Watch
So
them lose this appeal against this judge who said, "Okay, now she's going to tell you what really happened." The judge said that. That's crazy.
I think, yeah. I think most appeals anyway usually go to more than one level of the court if the person's willing to pursue it, right? Because that has to be met first. You have to be taking the action to continue the appeal, which Jonathan Majors hopefully has the perseverance to do so. It seems like he does. And he has support. Megan Good seems to be supportive of him and his family. And then you have Priya, and I don't know much about Seth, but Priya has gone out there and like she's like a bulldog fighting because she seems to genuinely believe in the people she defends. So not only do I think that Priya would be willing to do it because it's income, it's her job, but I think she's also passionate about like, no, this doesn't end here. This isn't right. So there's no reason for me to think that no one wants to move forward with this appeal. And I'd be interested in seeing all the appellate arguments raised.
But Priya Chaudhry needs to realize the racist world we live in. When you're on Roland Martin and you're saying what you're saying, great. I'm sure the audience believes every word, understands. When you're trying to explain to a jury, so guys, what did you just see? Huh? You're probably wondering about these white lies. You're talking to 5 out of 6 white people. You think they're gonna like, yeah, racism is bad, and like you gotta use it to your benefit. Is it nice that Jonathan has a whole crowd of black people in his entourage with him?
Well, it's
No, that hurts him. Find Jonathan's white friends and cycle them in. Make sure that you can see them
put
sitting
me
in.
up in there and I'll dress like a super white girl.
Simple as that. Simple as that. And then you can sit right next to Megan, and it could be very clear to the jury that Megan and you are buddy buddy. Like, it can be done. You have to utilize the hatefulness inside them. Her last name is Jabbari. Chaudhry, you better roll that last R on her last name when you're saying her name. Utilize the racism in your favor and show how much of a foreigner that this woman is.
Yep. Mrs. Majors, Miss Jabbari Majors, hyphenated surname. Just say it over. That was a good opportunity. She could have said it there too. But yeah, I don't know. I don't buy the isolation story. I just don't. And in fact, I didn't show the pictures, but there's pictures sprinkled. You know, we saw videos from Glastonbury and videos from like July and certain other months, but there's parts where she's hanging out with her friends in September and November of 2022. Again, this is overseas. Priya went through a whole timeline of he was working on this, and then you flew out to see him, and then you moved in with him, and then he moved here for a new job, and then you went with him there too. So there were all these opportunities where she could have been away from what she was alleging was abusive and that she didn't want to be a part of but couldn't get out of, and needed to use the police to finally help her get out of it on March 25th. Sag Harbor, talking to Priya Satyani on January 13th. None of it adds up. And the only thing I really believe is that when she says that March 25th affected me because I was worried I'd have to tell my friends and family things and that they'd see what was being said about me, I believe that. I believe you do not want your friends to watch a video like this. You do not want to watch you don't want them to see Chillmonger's clips breaking down what happened in the closet with Officer Swain and the pantomiming to the throat for the strangulation motion. You don't want people to see that. You just want people to see, like, hey, thank you so much to Sanctuary for Families of New York for helping me out. They're a domestic violence organization that helped me because I'm a victim. And it's bullshit. It's a facade.
I'm
It
a
just
victim
is.
who lost 2 of the most violent charges. Actually, more than that, because when the court case started, I think on the first day they were like, "Can we get rid of these charges, please?" And then Chaudhry was like, "Yeah, sure, we'll get rid of them."
Yeah, I always forget that too, that, we drop charges from the beginning and then we also drop charges the day trial starts.
We
Like,
dropped charges from the beginning, meaning the strangulation. Yeah, we dropped charges a lot of times.
yeah, and then all those other counts where it was more like serious on, I guess they were finally getting rid of like the head bump and scars on the neck. Those are probably the other counts where those things where the doctor didn't come in and corroborate anything. Like there were no, he punched me and mushed me in the side of my face. Well, there's none of that. He hit me in the back of the head. Well, there's no evidence of that. So they finally dropped those charges before, which was in their favor, right? Because if they had those charges, Priya Chaudhry would have gotten to hammer in those points and attack them, and it would have looked worse for their case. But I agree. Seems like a good person. Always seems to link up with a not so good person. The universe, I think, people target people. I maybe not intentionally. Maybe there's like a little bit of magnetism, but I think some people target people for sure.
Yeah.
So, not sure if that's what Grace Jabbari did, but I think once she was in it, she just wanted to make sure she could stay around. Hey, Ghost. Okay, we're at the end of this. Good to see you, though, Ghost. I feel bad because he's like, hello.
Yeah.
Or she. I think you're he. And then we're like about to jump out of here. And then, yeah, but you guys have been on it. Thank you guys. You guys are like little detectives in the chat that piece everything together. It's incredible to see. And that's why people don't want trials to be televised, because then you'll see the details and piece them together. So Chill, thank you for joining me. You guys a lot of you probably already subscribed to Chill's channel. I wish I could paste his link in the comments right now, but just type Chillmonger, because as he'll coach me on, it's really good to not have a common name like Cat. If your name is Chillmonger, you can just search it in YouTube and it'll come right up and you can subscribe and catch all of his content. And thank you guys all for being part of the chat, because you guys put the details together. And I hope not, because if I was in a situation coming fresh out of a situation, Juanita says, I wonder if Jonathan Majors hears his experience in the Courtney Clenny case. I think it'd be kind of difficult to listen to some of the stuff that's involved in that case if I just came out as something that I think it could have ended up that way for me. It can be kind of hard to hear that stuff, especially if it reminds you of something you just had to deal with. I think that was a whole nother level, because I think, even though I think Grace Jabbari had a substance abuse problem, I do think that there were a lot heavier issues of trauma and substance abuse with Courtney Clenny. But we'll have to see how that unfolds. We don't have all the information there yet. But I don't like to compare cases like across the board either, but we'll see. To cat something. Don't tell me that, because I'll literally make it cat something.
Cat daddy.
Just because you
Cat
said
mommy. You can be a cat mommy.
Cat mommy instead of daddy? Why wouldn't I just make a cat daddy?
Because we tried that. That was the olden days.
And then that text from Christian reminded me of him. Oh, yeah. So, like, the one that we read today. So what Juanita's referring to is in February of 2022, Christian Obumseli ends up getting stabbed on April 3rd. February 26th, he sends, like, it's a really long text message, but it covers a bunch of points. Like, Clenny already stabbed him in the lip, in the leg. He's talking about, like, we're not supposed to be able to mess this apartment up that we're sharing together. Is love going to kill me? There's some things coming out in those text messages that look really, really bad for Clenny. So if you guys want to check that out, I did a video tying that to, because Clenny's parents got arrested today. Both of her parents got arrested. So that's why I did a video, but I tied it into those text messages because he mentions, like, hey, you could just let me hold $150K for cryptocurrency. And the thing that it speculated the parents got arrested on was the dad accessed his laptop and all he could find on the hard drive was a crypto exchange. And so he turned it to the defense. He was like, here's a laptop. I don't see anything important on it, but in case it's evidence. But 2 months ago, he had just asked Clenny for $150,000 in money to flip in crypto. So I think the prosecution was looking for an excuse to put out a warrant, because now they can bring the parents in and question them on other things besides this laptop. But that's the video. That's what Juanita's referencing there. And then, yeah. So, yeah, if you search for Cat Jonathan Majors, I'll come right up. Although I'm surprised the Cat Williams interview where he mentions Jonathan Majors isn't overtaking that. Real Cat Slim Shady.
Megan Good.
The
She was
haircut.
so beautiful. They had to drop 2 of the charges just like that.
Did he say that in that interview? I
That's how
listened to
beautiful
it like
Megan
in
Good was.
bits.
They just couldn't give all 4 charges. They just had to forgive some.
I saw parts of it because I was, like, driving and like half-ass listening, you know. But I liked it. I know I got some hate, but I liked it. I like Shannon Sharp too, though. But before I go on another tangent with Chill, I'm gonna get with you on a Creed 3 stream. You guys in the chat seem like you know more about the Creed trilogy than I do, but I promised I did my homework and I watched Creed 3 and I paid attention and I liked it and I have thoughts. So
Okay, weekend?
yeah.
Okay.
We'll figure out a time. I know you do like your streams around 10 o'clock or whatever. We can do that.
We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll figure it out and we'll tell you guys. All right, you guys. Oh, and AV to the 7th Power. She made the thumbnail for this Thursday. So that's tomorrow. This time she should be streaming at 7 p.m. tomorrow Eastern, and I'll be her guest. I can't promise you that she won't be late, but she did confirm tomorrow, Thursday, AV to the 7th Power. We're going to be talking about Jonathan Majors now that she's read the transcript. So if you guys want to hop over there too, that's tomorrow. Other than that, anything else?
We're out.
All right, we are out of here. Goodbye, guys. Thank you so much for joining.